good. Okay. All right. Let's call to order Historic Landmarks Commission, March 4th, 2020. All right. So, first order of business, general public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. Any public comment? Okay. On to item B, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting February 19th, 2020.
So moved.
All right. Yeah, motion by Drury, second by House. Under discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Hold on 1 second. Let me actually.
Yeah.
For some reason I'm having trouble finding my minutes. Is there a spare minutes copy I can mark up if there's? Yeah, thanks.
I don't think there are any comments.
All right. Yes, Commissioner
I was just going
Drury.
to say, considering the length of that rigorous meeting, that it's remarkably intact, the minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything on here.
All right. Is this a totally clean?
Totally
minutes?
clean.
All right. As submitted. Okay. In that case, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Abstain? Motion carries unanimously. On to item C, approval of the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The agenda today was reviewed by Vice Chair House. Item A, 40 East Anapamu Street, received approval of review after final. Item B, 2948 Serena Drive, received project design approval and final approval. Item C, 2115 Garden Street, was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer. Item D, 610 Castillo Street, received approval of review after final. Item E, 618 Castillo Street, received approval of review after final.
All right. So, any notes, Commissioner House? Thank you for.
No, it was very straightforward and simple.
Okay. Great. So then I'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
Commissioner Mahan, second by Drury. Under discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right. Item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Mr. Chair, the design review supervisor has an announcement.
All right.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I wanted to come before you this afternoon and announce some staffing changes that will be taking place in design review, and specifically with respect to the Historic Landmarks Commission. Pilar has been promoted to assistant planner in the development review section of planning. So congratulations to her. She is moving up, but we're going to need to replace her. And so Will Russell, who is currently staffing the sign committee, is going to be taking over the Historic Landmarks Commission staffing. So he's here today.
Welcome, Will.
And so there's some other changes in the other section, review bodies as well. But just in terms of HLC, you'll be seeing Will here, and I think Pilar may be able to explain. She will be transitioning out, but at this time she is helping to train Will on the specifics of this particular position. Thank you.
Do we get to keep Heidi?
Heidi gets to stay, yes.
Oh, good.
At least as far as I know.
Does she want to stay? Is the question.
Yeah, she has to. She's stuck.
Can we get Pilar for another session?
Yeah, so Mr. Chair and
Yes.
Commissioner Drury, I will be around while Will is transitioning into this role, probably for at least a few meetings while he gets comfortable. So I will be around a little bit.
Chocolate cake.
Big one.
Is that a motion?
Big one.
All right.
And then, Mr. Chair, I had one additional announcement. I received an email from Commissioner Lundvik regarding 9 West Figueroa Street. It's parking lot 3. There was, and I've brought it to the Commission's attention before in respect to Commissioner Lundvik's question about a transformer that was installed without a permit in the Paseo, just adjacent to Lot 3. The proposal that was originally here in 2018 is being separated out, so they are going to be coming before the commission with a proposal just for the Paseo area. One, to permit the transformer, and two, to install, I believe it's gates on either side of the Paseo, consistent with what they showed in 2018 to the commission, so that they will be providing something new. It's not ready to come before the commission quite yet. It's still going through staff level review prior to coming before the board. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Lenvick?
I would encourage our staff to talk to Public Works about maybe coming to us for a discussion, because that is, I think, a valuable paseo, and I would hate to have them waste their time doing something that's going to kind of bump up against what we feel is a necessary improvement there. So I would encourage them to come and chat.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. I'll relay those comments. Thank you, Commissioner Lembick.
All right.
Sure.
Commissioner Mahan?
I'll be leaving at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
You think so?
And then, Mr. Chair, I did want to announce Commissioner Edmonds will be absent from today's meeting, and Commissioner Uli as well. It's my understanding that Commissioner Uli does intend to come back on March 18th, but I'll let you know if anything changes.
Okay. Thank you for that update. And so to keep quorum, we'll need to stay.
So, Mr. Chair, we need 5 members. Currently, we have 6.
Yeah.
So we should be good for today's meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep things moving along as
Does
well.
that 5 include you or not?
All right. So other announcements?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Vena.
I'd like to bring a few things up to staff's attention and ourselves for that matter. First of all, the back of the Amazon facility, the landscaping there, we never really approved it, and what is in there seems to have been placed in haphazardly and not of anything that we would normally approve as far as quality is concerned. Next, I'm concerned about the Museum of Art, where it looks like they're finishing up, and at the same time, nothing is being done about the concrete, the paving in the back, and trying to get it back to its original state in which, was set aside for further improvement, which is not coming about, or I don't see too much address on that. And then, not to mention that, but there's a massive transformer that we approved, and it's just stuck there with no landscaping in or around the parking lot adjacent to the library, or directly across from the back entry to the library. So perhaps maybe even some artwork on it might make it look better, as opposed to forest green and 5 foot high by 5 foot wide.
And was there any other, is it built per the plan of what we had approved, or was there a landscape component too?
I don't think, there may have been at the time, because we had a different landscape architect for those improvements, and whatever happened to them, I have no idea.
Gotcha. So can
I do
you-
know.
Okay.
The transformer did come through, and we looked at landscaping options as well as paint. And so you all chose a paint scheme. I think they're just waiting for the construction to be wrapped up, but I do believe they might come back to you with a different paint scheme.
Okay.
But I said whatever, they have to come back and have your approval if they want to change what was approved. But they do know, and we recently just looked at it with
Okay.
the library staff.
Concerned about it.
We
Commissioner,
approved that to be painted with some kind of a tile pattern.
Yeah, it had a tile pattern, like a chevron kind of thing. But so if they would change their mind, they'll just have to come back and work it through here.
Okay. Sounds good.
But they're aware they
So-
need to come back, and that they are, they do have some obligations to
I'm just
conceal the.
I'm just concerned that if we don't make any noise, nothing's going to happen, so.
Yeah, no, it's good. Squeaky wheel gets oil.
Thank you.
So in terms of the Amazon building and then the other, the concrete, can we get more info on that?
So, Mr. Chair, I'll look into both of those issues and provide a summary at the next meeting.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I have an announcement, a couple announcements. One is that I will have to step down from, let's see, item, Victoria. Is there there's an item on Victoria? Was there? We had.
The 113 is being pulled.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, never
I'll,
mind. Then I
I'll
won't
go
have to
through the
sit down.
list of the ones being pulled
Okay.
or postponed, but
okay.
pulled from this agenda.
Gotcha. One announcement I had that was a positive one. At the downtown Santa Barbara State of the City address and awards, HLC and our urban historian and the city got a lot of kudos for historic structures being an important part of downtown revitalization. And I have never heard so many public nice comments about HLC or the urban historian, the great job that everyone's doing. So it was very well recognized by a range of people, including Dr. Ann Peterson getting the award for it. Yeah, she got an award for a volunteer, and so. But it was very well recognized as part of the key success of Santa Barbara going forward. So. Yeah. All right. Any other announcements or any other news? Okay. So we'll go on to item E, subcommittee reports. Any subcommittee meetings or anything to report on?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
Commissioner Mahan, has there been any new developments on funding for
There has
awards?
not been.
Okay.
Okay. All right. In that case, we'll close item E. On to item 1, miscellaneous action item, 1731 Oswin Road. All right. This is a review of staff report and public hearing to consider structure of merit designation of the Mediterranean-style building designed by Reginald Johnson, FAIA, in 1916. So, yes.
Okay, well, Heidi's going to
Okay,
sign this in.
gotcha.
I wanted to remind the commission and the public, the first two items were not on the potentials list. These were identified by commissioners and reviewed at the designation subcommittee as eligible to be designated and brought to you for your consideration that way. So we have several ways historic properties are identified, but one of them is commissioners can identify them. We discuss them at the designation subcommittee, and they recommend them here. There was another building in this set, 1322 Dover by Richard Neutra. That one, the owner is not available till this summer, so we postponed it so they can be here. So the first two items came to us that way.
All right.
Let me just put this in the... There's a problem. There we go. Okay, so the first, I'm going to kind of go quickly because I know we have a heavy agenda, but 1731 Oswin was constructed in 1916 in the Mediterranean style with Spanish colonial revival elements. It was designed by noted architect Reginald Davis Johnson, FAIA. It has some character-defining features of the massing, which is Mediterranean with symmetric, like the symmetry of the massing, with intersecting volumes on the front, but more more undulating volumes on the rear. The roof shows the connection to other Mediterranean styles with its terracotta-covered, low-sloped hip roof and narrow eaves. It has classical columns accentuating the entrance and elaborate around arched windows on the first floor and simplified window patterns on the second. It's really noted because of its connection with Reginald Davis Johnson, whose efforts on Kate School, the Biltmore Hotel, Bell Squardo Estate, Santa Barbara Downtown Post Office, and other buildings have won acclaim to him, as well as emerging aesthetic and the heritage of the city and the state. So I can go further if you have more questions, but I know we have a lot to go through. So.
To cover. I did have one question on the. So 1916, is that the earliest Reginald Johnson in Santa Barbara that we know of?
That we know of. I don't know if it's the earliest. He did quite a few in the early teens, but I'd have to go through how
Yeah,
many
if
we
you did
know
them
of.
here. Yeah, because I know.
Because I know there's several around 1918, 1917.
And 1919. And then,
yeah.
But this
But
is. Yeah.
This might be the earliest, yeah.
Okay.
And this is one of the few that have the drawings. Or, so there've been a few alterations on the addition, but the front elevations really remain intact,
Great. Thank you.
as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
It's hard because the bushes.
Okay. So now let's open public comment. If you're done with your report. So anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item, 1731
Here's the
Oswin?
drawings.
Okay. No. All right. We'll close public comment. Back to the commission for any other questions or comments.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
On page 2, Mr. Hernandez, that photograph, is that the Mirador that was constructed as an addition?
Yes, yes.
That's also part of the building itself?
It's part of the building. It was an addition.
Addition, right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it looks like it was done over here, I think. So here's the original entrance, the big chimney, and then it's over here on an addition on this side.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner
I'll
House.
make a motion to adopt a resolution to designate as a structure of merit 1731 Lost Wing Road.
Second.
All right. House and second by Mahan. Under discussion, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, unanimously. Okay, on to item 2. Miscellaneous action item of 123 East Mitchell-Trina. Review of staff report and public hearing to consider a structure of merit designation of mid-century modern style building designed by Henry Howell and Wallace Arendt in 1955.
So as you noted, this is 1955 mid-century modern style. It has lots of the elements of a mid-century modern, specifically the flat roof with the ledge at the roof line, the combination of vertical boards and stucco, as well as aluminum windows and doors. We do have the original drawings as well, and it's very unaltered. They have the apartments, balconies here, the big expansive sliding windows here, the wall planes. So it's been unaltered, and again, it's the work of our local architects, Howell and Arndt, and retains most of its historic features. So I'll let you all decide.
Great, thank you. All right, so now we'll open public comment for 123 East Mitchell-Trina. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item? All right, seeing no one, I will close public comment and to the commission for any questions or comments. Commissioner Lundy.
Yes. I brought this to the nominations committee, and I think that there wasn't unanimity at the committee. You were there, weren't you? Yeah, okay. So we chose to let the full commission make a decision on this. I personally feel, this is right across from a park, I personally feel this is a well-preserved and good example of mid-century modern multifamily apartment house. And if you walk around it, going back, it's got all the parts for an apartment house are there, and the stairs and yada, yada, yada. But it is well preserved, and I think it is well designed. I mean, it modulates. It's structured. Its massing is comfortable. So I would certainly endorse this designation for the building, but it is open to discussion, of course, since it was not recommended by the nominating committee.
But it was recommended more to come up to the whole
Right,
board and
right.
have that discussion here because it wasn't unanimous.
Mr. Chair?
All right, Commissioner Mann.
Yeah, I think it's important for the commission to recognize some of these mid-century modern building, the better ones in Santa Barbara. This is Henry Howell. His name is on the Arlington Theater drawing, so he was really a a Spanish colonial revival, a classical type of architect, whereas Wally Arndt came out of Notre Dame after the Second World War, and this is really an expression of modern architecture as it was taught after the Second World War, and I think this is a nice example of it, and it should be protected.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jury?
and we just saw an example that Commissioner Lindvik brought of a Luda Maria Riggs house on 1400 Dover that's very much in that family.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that'll come up for designation soon, we hope.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner House.
I'll make a motion and see how it goes.
All right.
So be a motion to adopt a resolution to designate as a structure of merit 123 East Mitchell-Traina Street.
I'll second that.
All right, second by Lenvik. All right, under discussion.
I have one comment. As I've kind of talked this building around among architects and in the community, I've come to realize that an awful lot of young architects or architects in hope of being architects have lived in this apartment over the years. I mean, and so it's kind of a recognition that an architect or architect-to-be kind of finds it as a comfortable place to be from the standpoint of his or her own feelings about design.
They're
Or it says low rent.
Or the low rent.
Okay, and so under discussion, I would say I was one that wasn't quite sold on it. I thought it wasn't the greatest, and in comparison with for example, the Luda ones of the drawings, at least that we just saw, I would see that as being a notch up, and whether this would make the cut or not. But I get it. It's also by a noted architect, so it was a sort of on the fence thing. So, but I just wanted to officially say what that discussion had been as well. So make the case, the devil's advocate case. So, all right. All right. So with that, let's vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, on to item 3. Okay, so archaeology report for 20 East de la Guerra Street, Plaza de la Guerra. This is requesting acceptance of a Phase 2 archaeology. And actually,
Mr. Chair,
no,
that's
no.
actually
Oh, sorry, that was
item
5. Sorry.
3, multiple historic resources. Thank
sorry,
you.
jumped too far.
You just don't want to do number 3.
Yeah, there we go. I was avoiding it. I was just pull a fast one. All right, item 3, multiple historic resources per attached Exhibit A. Okay. So if our urban historian would give us a little summary, or do you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I have this little intro for the public while we're doing the hearings, and then I did put a slide for each item so we can just roll through the slides and yay or nay each one
Yeah,
as we go. I
so-
thought that might help
Facilitate.
and
Yeah,
try
so-
it. We know we're always trying to deal with how to get through these.
The big list.
And then I also posted the list of the ones that requested to be postponed after the agenda was posted. So the purpose of the hearing today is to conduct the legal hearings on buildings that are listed on the potential historic resources list. This is a list we keep for the requirements of the State Historic Preservation Office of buildings that are eligible to be designated that need to be considered historic per the California Environment and Quality Act. So if you've been on that list, you're already treated as a historic building, and under the jurisdiction of the HLC, this hearing would only make it officially a local structure of merit. Nothing will change in terms of design review. We do review exterior alterations only. If the commission decides the building is not worthy of a structure of merit, they may remove it, but if it still has evidence that it is a historic resource, it needs to stay on the potentials list because we do need to fulfill our obligations for the California Environmental Quality Act that includes anything that has the potential to be designated with evidence on record. If the HLC finds the property does not meet any of the criteria for designation, they can vote to remove the property from the potentials list, and it will no longer be considered historic locally or for the California Environmental Quality Act. The decisions of the Historic Landmarks Commission may be appealed to City Council in writing within 10 calendar days. And upon the Commission's adoption of the designation of the structure of merit, the resolution is filed in the Office of the Recorder within 60 days. And this, we will send you a resolution of designation that you can have in honor of your building contributing to the significance of the city. There are some benefits. Once you're a designated structure of merit, you can qualify for the Mills Act property tax incentive. This does require an additional application. And you can use the California State Historical Building Code, which offers lots of code relief for historic buildings. So we did have the items that were pulled off the agenda and requested for postponement were 1710 Loma Street, 10 East Figueroa Street, 11 East Victoria, 702 East Victoria, 129 West Jana, and 317 through 331 West Jana. So they're not in the presentation, so I took care of that for you. So the first property in the packet was, I'm just going, they're alphabetical, is 2208 De La Vina Street.
And actually, don't mind, I'll jump in for a minute. So because we're going to do this a little differently than we've done it before, where we've gone through the list of all the things we disagree with, we're just going to go one at a time through them and vote on whether they are going to be structures of merit or not, and then solidify things at the end. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then we'll go, what's it called, public as well on each item, right?
Okay.
In terms of being
See if
able
there's
to have the
public
public comment on each item so that we can kind
Then
of
we can do it while
keep
it's
it
up.
straight and
Yeah.
have, Ms. Plummer?
Yeah, I would, Mr. Chair, I would suggest doing public comment just in one period of time rather than individually
Okay.
on each single one, because then we're going to have to reopen public comment on every single item. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
We'll try this out. We'll
and
see
I
if we
would
can-
also, so I would suggest doing public comment now and then, going through all of them and doing questions and comments afterwards.
Okay, let's try that for ease of
We'll try it.
facilitating. Yeah, we're trying a slightly new version. Normally, we would go with the commissioners asking questions and drilling down on each one of these. So, but now we're going to go in sequence. So, anyone, I'm assuming there's a number of you that are here for this item, that your house, or you're here to talk about one of the properties on this list. For item 3, we're going to open public comment. So if you do want to speak on it first, and you can tell us what your address is and what your explanation of what your comments are. I do want to kind of give an outline for what, as our urban historian has kind of gone through some of the wordy nuts and bolts of each of those pieces, sort of give you an overview of what our job is here. And so our commission, our job is to review projects and see whether that are on the potentials list right now. These are all before us. And we're trying to decide whether they are designatable as a structure of merit or not. And so the things that remove things from being eligible for a structure of merit are whether things have changed on the front, or they're just not original, or they're not worthy of being designated. So if those are sort of the key things to talk about if you don't think that your house is worthy of being a structure of merit. And so I want to kind of make that clear in terms of we're trying to judge it objectively as to whether that piece of architecture rises to the level of being a structure of merit or rises to the level of being a city landmark. So that's kind of where we're going. That's what we're reviewing all these lists. And the lists themselves, all the potentials lists that you hear about are all, there was a larger list developed as part of understanding what we have as historic structures in the city. And so this property at one point was put onto that list. And so now we're trying to judge them so that we're not just potential or actual. We're actually trying to make them either they are or aren't. So that's part of reviewing the list. So we've been doing this for a couple of years now.
So even if
Yes.
you feel like it shouldn't be on here, if you guys
Can't hear.
Oh, actually, if you can come here, we're gonna break protocol. But if you can come up here and speak into the mic so everyone can hear, and so.
We could go into that
And,
one.
or actually, yeah, there we go. Perfect. Set up there. And we'll start with you for public comment. Yes, button. There we go. Green light.
No.
And then please just say your name for the record.
Oh, my name is Monica Gutierrez.
Okay.
And my question is, if you would, is there any way to get yourself off the structure of merit or designated structure of merit list?
Yeah, I think it is. Can you a little bit closer into the microphone?
Is there any way? Okay, so we're having a meeting here to decide if a home is going to be a structure of merit or not a structure of merit. So say it's designated as not a structure of merit. Are you off the HLC?
Yes.
Okay.
So at this meeting, if we look at a property and we say this has been changed, it really doesn't warrant a level that's a structure of merit, we really want to remove it from the list altogether, so that you're no longer within HL. You wouldn't come here for any addition or any change that you did to that property. You would go to Single Family Design Board, or you'd go to Architecture Board of Review, but not being judged on a historic realm. You'd be being judged on the other rules of city planning. So Santa Barbara, basically, you're going to be in a review board one way or the other. If it's
Right.
historic, it comes here, or if it's downtown, it comes here on El Pueblo Viejo, State Street area. So that's what our review board covers. So, but you would be removed from the potentials list altogether, and we would say, no, you're not a structure of merit. And then, but those properties that are on the potentials list, and this is what the urban historian was making a note of, that are currently on the potentials list, or currently over 50 years old, for example, as soon as they go for a permit, they're going to get triggered and come before us to see if they are historic or not. So it's going to be judged whether it's on a case-by-case basis, or in this case where you're judging all of them up front, and you're saying you're either within this purview or you're not. You're either a structure of merit or you're not. And then I would add a couple more things is only structures of merit. I don't know if you know about the Mills Act. So the Mills Act is a state program, but it's administered at the city level, and up to 8 properties a year can get the Mills Act qualified and receive the Mills Act, which is depending on what you're doing to your house, whether it's painting it, re-roofing it, upkeep, repointing stone, that kind of thing. All that can go into a portion of that can be tax deductible. So you can get property tax reduction based on how much work you're doing with the property. And it's about the sort of general health and care of this historic structure. So the only properties that have been designated as historic structures of merit can receive that as well. And that program has been active and doing quite well.
And now it's no longer an 8 limit. We have
that's
the
right.
monetary limit,
yep.
so that more people can participate.
That's right. So
we
it's
hope.
been opened up even more. So basically, if you're a structure of merit and you want to do work on your house and even just upkeep and have a 10-year plan, that you can apply for the Mills Act. It's once a year, right? Is it still? And once a year, all those that apply are reviewed, and the city can give you a tax break, which is nice. And then I'm trying to think if there's any other particular notes of historic structures versus non. In general as well, the rules for historic structures are when you have a historic structure, we want to identify what the best features of it are, what makes it historic. Usually it's tending towards the front of the property as well from the public view as being the most important. So that you can work with the property, you can add to it, you can do that, but we want it done in a sensitive way. So if you're going to add to it, typically we like you adding towards the back rather than tearing down the front or changing the front dramatically. And it depends on a case-by-case basis what the quality of the architecture is and why. But that's kind of a general overview of what could play out next. So, and it's always a lot of talking up front, but we'll.
So only
any other
true
questions?
structures of merit are eligible for the Mills Act?
That's right.
Okay. And would you have to apply every year?
No,
for
so it's a
assistance, or
10-year
is it just-
program. You set it up with the city. You
Oh,
tell
I'm
them what
sorry,
you're
you
going to
said-
do over 10 years. And then basically, and it can actually go with the property too. So you can have a tax break that goes with the property as long as you're keeping up your end of the deal, the city keeps up their end of the deal, And yeah, so that's, I'm getting it all right, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because it's on the record, so.
Had me convinced.
And yeah, so that's the yeah. So and talk to our urban historian Nicole Hernandez for more information on it. It's a really great program as part of kind of encouraging people to keep up their historic resources, and which makes a more beautiful city for everyone. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr.
All
Chair,
right, Commissioner Mahan.
there also is the issue of adjacent properties that would be reviewed by the Single Family Design Board, but if this is a structure of merit or a historic structure, the Single Family Design Board would take that into account when they're reviewing adjacent properties in terms of compatibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
It in a sense, it protects the immediate neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In terms of compatibility.
Yep, that's a good point. All right, and then in general, for public comment, you're going to have 2 minutes. They'll have the little timer going up there. And so we can go through and have anyone from the public now wishing to comment. So if you haven't filled out a speaker slip, please do. There's a blue speaker slip over there. If we'll start everyone going through, so just fill it out. If you don't get a chance to fill it out, just make sure you fill it out afterwards so we have your name accurately and we can continue. So would you like to start, ma'am?
It's not a public comment.
Oh.
It's just that we have another meeting at 4:30.
Okay.
We're number 225 West.
No, so you got to come up and speak.
Is it in this? Is it?
Have any objections to the designation? We rather like the idea.
Sorry, you're. Which number are you?
225 West. Bring it forward.
Yeah, we'll front load it. Yeah, and then would you like to come? Do you want to have any public comment or no? Okay. All right. So we have 712 East Victoria Street. All right, come on up. Lori Benton. Lori Christine Benton.
Hi, my name is Lori Benton from 712 East Victoria Street. Mainly listening here, I would like to know how I would possibly be removed from this list, because looking at a lot of the information that was given, and then my son delved even a little bit deeper, and he was indicating that this 10-year contract, if it, for some reason, during the 10 years I was not able to fulfill for whatever reason, what they request, it would result in me being fined 12.5% of the assessed market value of my property, which for me would be thousands and thousands of dollars, and I simply can't do that. I'm 72 years of age, and I have a very low yearly income of $14,280, and any monetary request and repairs from the city would result in undue stress and anxiety on my part. The house was purchased by my parents when I was in the 5th grade. It's a wonderful family home, and I'm hoping to grandfather it to my son when I pass on. I've talked to several people, and they've indicated that a house like mine, with the mandatory stipulations the city would impose if it were on the list, would be nearly impossible to sell. No one would want to be tied to such intrusive and frustrating requirements, and my son is planning on leaving the state in 3 years when he retires, and the house would, instead of being a gift of sorts from his mom, it would be more of an albatross around his neck, and it gives me great stress.
Okay, so and normally we don't do back and forth with public comment, but
Right.
I do want to just make sure we're clear about things. So the Mills Act is the agreement that you don't have to at all. It's completely chosen whether you want to apply for it. You can apply for it if you want, if you're a historic structure. You can't apply for it if you're something else that's not historic
Right,
structure.
my house is, though.
Yeah, but if you're designated as a historic structure, you do not have to do the Mills Act. So
Okay.
it's a total 100%.
So is there a contract, though, that I do have to sign in
nope.
any regards
There's
to
nothing.
this? So I wouldn't have to be obligated the 10-year?
Nothing at all.
Are you sure?
You have to apply.
I'm really nervous,
so, yeah, so you have to apply for it to even be considered for it. And if
Okay.
you're considered for it, it's not necessarily that you're going to get it, but as long as you're a historic structure of merit and you have a big plan for what you want to do with your property and upkeep it.
really.
So if you don't, there's no contract that's going to be imposed on you at all.
So
in that way.
will people be coming and saying, well, we want you to paint that, or you need to fix that, or tear
nothing.
that down and
Nothing.
replace
No,
that?
nothing.
Chair?
No?
Yes, Commissioner Lindsay.
I think the easy solution is if someone doesn't want their property designated as structure of merit, simply tell us or tell the staff. And it's not our intent to want to do it either. Then.
We just leave them on the potentials list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will remain on the potentials list, which means if you ever did come to the city to do work, then you're going to be in the same process
Yeah.
again.
It
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
doesn't make any difference to us. You know.
Well, you guys are just wonderful. I love you. Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you. Yeah.
Better,
Okay.
better.
So, all right, so now next, do we have another speaker slip? All right. Okay, so we're for Monica Gutierrez for 301 West Pedregosa.
301 what?
West Pedregosa.
301 West Pedregosa. Yeah, right there.
All right. Welcome back.
Thank you. Well, I never really wanted to be on the list, so I'd like to be taken off the list, but I don't know if it can happen or not.
Okay. So,
Because I've read about my house, but I personally don't see anything special about the outside of my house.
Did we get the
Inside,
photo up
yes.
there?
The outside, no.
We should have done all.
Yeah.
There we go.
There it is.
you don't like your battered columns?
No, I don't like them. But
That's very nice.
It's nice. You have a nice craftsman. So I think what we'll probably do is, it is. So the way it works technically is, it is within the Historic Landmarks Commission to either decide whether they are or not, or whether we're just going to keep them on the potentials list. And so it has been our practice of late, especially, that if people really do not want their house designated, we'll just leave it on the potentials list, but knowing that it's still in the same category in terms of all review. So it's still going to come, if you wanted to do an addition, or if you wanted to tear it down, or if you wanted to do whatever to it, it's still going to come back here. It's just on a potential list, and then it'll be evaluated more in depth at that point if you wanted to do anything to it. So this way, it would be a way of clearing it off if it wasn't, or accepting it if it was. But the other alternative is, if we leave it on the potentials list, it just will still have the same review process.
right,
But you can't have a Mills Act.
right.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
All right, Commissioner Drury.
this comes up every time we have these long lists. Nothing draconian is going to be done by the Landmarks Commission. You're not going to force anyone to do anything they don't want to do, unless they want to tear down the house and it's a historic structure. That's a whole nother thing. But this is actually to protect the architecture of Santa Barbara. And on the potentials list, you're just sitting there. You don't have to worry about the city coming down and forcing you to do a contract that you don't want to do. It's just not how it's supposed to work, nor does it work that way. It's a good thing.
And actually, just to sort of add one more note to that, there is also a lot of change happening in the city right now as well. And one of the benefits on the good side of having a historic resource is that then there needs to be consideration if someone wants to do something right next door to you for the historic resource, as opposed to if there isn't. So
Too late.
So there is that as well as an added thing that has to be taken into consideration if you are designated a historic structure. So, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we are on to Karen O'Hara, 413 East Victoria Street.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen O'Hara. I own the property at 413 East Victoria Street. And I'm actually happy to be here because I think it's really cool that my house has been nominated, because my grandfather built it. And it's been in my family this entire time since 1923. It was completed in 24. And I actually brought some pictures to share with you because there's a picture of it under construction with my dad standing out front, which I'll pass around. And then a couple of it later on the front porch. My grandmother at the garage with a little note on the back from my grandpa saying, here's Mom lifting the door with a little finger. My dad on his bike, and a picture of my grandfather who was a house builder.
Could you bring them up here, actually? We can do them on the screen.
Pass them around. And then there's another one of my dad and his little four-wheel, I guess it's like a little tractor out front.
Let's put them up
Yeah.
so everyone can see.
I didn't make copies because I've been really busy writing about coronavirus the last few days. So the last year and a half, I've actually spent considerable time, effort, money, and sweat equity to completely renovate the exterior as far as like, I had it completely sanded down and repainted. I put on a new roof, and I just finished painting the garage. And my intent is to keep it as original as possible. Just finished renovating the arbor that goes over the driveway, which is a significant feature of the house. But one of my chief concerns about this property is it's zoned R3, and a lot of the properties on my block have already been ruined. There was a house across the street when my grandmother was there where there was a doll hospital. And it was the cutest little house. And you could go peek in over the door transom and see all these spooky parts of dolls. And that house is gone. It's a duplex now. So my intent is to try to keep the house and not let someone buy it and tear it down and build a duplex or a triplex there. So, and my kids are on board with that because they will inherit. But I agree with the others. I don't want it to become encumbered. But I wouldn't apply for the Mills Act. I wouldn't benefit from it really anyway. And I don't really intend to do any major renovation on it, except maybe the garage. But that could benefit me because it's on the easement. And if I could get a setback waiver for that, it might help
Chair,
me.
we're over the 2 minutes.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing these great photos and for telling us about it. And yes,
Thank you for your
thank
time.
you.
I might ask a question?
Yes.
Do you have an idea who the architect was?
It was
it your
her.
grandfather
Well, my
as
grandfather built it, but
Right.
I suspect he built a lot of homes in Santa Barbara. His name was Carl Peterson, and I suspect it might have been one of the kits, but he modified it significantly for because his family was living in it. So it still has the original rope pulleys, and a lot of the original interior design is still the same.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. On to Priscilla Jacobs. Okay. 2300 De La Vina.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Jacobs. Bob Bartline and I are co-trustees of this property on De La Vina. I don't know if you're aware, but the property was taken down to the studs in 2011, 2012. And nothing is original on the building now. There it is. So, I mean, everything is new. That's the original color, and the style is the same, but it was a 4-unit apartment. It's now an 8-unit apartment. And there's nothing original about it.
Do you want to be removed from the list?
I would like to.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner House.
I would have a question of staff. I think Brian Cornell was the architect on the remodel
He was.
of this, wasn't he? And so would it not have been considered whether it should be designated at that time?
I was not staff here at that time, so I don't. They did not do things the way we do them.
There was no exterior change to that. I don't think.
I do have this letter from 2011, and I don't know if it was. Do you want to take a look at it and see if it was designated at that time?
Sure.
We talked about it. We had to do some things, like the windows. We had to keep the 3 panels, some things the same.
Mr. Chair, may I ask you a question?
Oh, I have a.
Oh, go ahead.
This letter was from Alex Cole. It says the alterations meet the Secretary of Interior standards and impacts are less than significant, class 3. So it
So,
And
so
basically, it's been restored, so it's not it hasn't been altered, really.
yeah, so they probably got a categorical exemption from CEQA with no EIR because the conclusions are that the project would not have a negative impact to the resource.
So with
that
the-
means it
yeah, so with the-
stays.
yeah, so what what all that jargon was,
Sorry.
meant that basically back then they had to prove that it was, although it was a potential historic resource or historic resource, I don't know which one, it was what they were going to do to it was, even though they were stripping it down and they were going to keep all the openings similar so that it actually would stay historic. That's and if they had wanted to change things, that's why they kept the divisions the same in terms of the windows and whatever else that they're talking about. The whole point of their having to keep that shape and keep those openings and keep that size was so that it would keep its historicity, is that the idea. So it would still be qualified as
Yeah, and the only way to take it off with that CEQA analysis would be to do a whole new structures report, and that would be pretty onerous. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
As with the others, I would assume that you could request that you just remain on the potentials list, such that if you did something in the future, then it would be considered for designation.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, now the last one I have here is Edward Gutierrez, and for 301 West Pedregosa.
Hello, my name's Edward Gutierrez.
Hello.
My wife already went over our house at 301 West Pedregosa, and I've talked to Ms. Hernandez on the phone, and I guess our concern is, with our house being a historic house, you know, we'd like to make some changes in a sense with our lawn. We want to make it water friendly. We want to do that to the backyard. And how would we go about that process if we want to change the lawn or even change the roof? Do we have to check in with Ms. Hernandez every time we want to do something? And is there a fee that goes with that?
I'll let staff answer.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. And to your question, our process, regardless of what you're doing in the city, does go through design review, whether it's reviewed by this commission or the Single Family Design Board. There are fees that are associated with that for minor improvements, such as a re-roof or landscape improvements that aren't really large exterior improvements. They're usually reviewed on the consent calendar, and the fee for that is, at this point in time, we do a fee update every year, but it is $590.
For a change,
yes.
like if we want to make a water-wise
For
lawn?
minor improvements, yes, like if it's minor but not, very large. There's also administrative fees, which are $40 if it's very, very minor, that are reviewed at the staff level.
historic buildings are exempt from the administrative
and
fee.
And
So most of the things you're talking about are administrative.
Okay.
And as we talked about on the phone, only when you got into a large addition would there be a fee to come here.
Okay.
We don't.
So as your example of the roof, so if you wanted to re-roof, it would be coming to doing an administrative, as long as it was sort of like for like or part of the language. If you tried to go like Spanish tile on this thing, then you might have a problem.
Right. Well, say I'm just going to do the same exact roof, or say we want to do solar, and they have solar tiles, for instance. Now there's some solar tiles that match the roof. Are we able to do that, or do we have to go through the process for that?
Solar is exempt from design review, even on historic buildings. So you're exempt from
So we
design
can
review.
put the big glass panels on our roof if we choose to. And
There's nothing anybody
we can do
here.
about
The
it.
state has said solar is sacred.
okay. How about
You can make
wind?
it as ugly as you want.
Wind
Talk to the state. That'll be the next.
Wind machines are prohibited in the city.
So there any change for the roof, we're going to have to pay a fee to change the roof.
But you go as
So
administrative.
don't.
Okay.
It's exempt from all design review fees if it's administrative, and the roof is administrative. So once you are doing something that there's a visual change, you might.
Okay.
It depends on how big
but
it is.
Mr. Chair, I do want to be clear. You still have to get a building permit for changes, and there are fees for that. So, that's separate from the design review
I
process.
understand. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Drury?
413 East Victoria and 301 West Pedregosa are the same front elevation except reversed.
Okay.
Is it not?
Are you just trying to confuse us?
Yeah.
No, I just looked these together.
Where are you going with this?
Yeah. Cool. So if you designate one, we have to
So
designate
if
the other?
W.W. Smith did the one on 301 West Pedregosa, maybe he did the one on...
Okay, let's talk about that
When we get to it.
after the comments. All right, so, all right, any other?
Nope.
Okay, comment? All right. So anyone else from the public wishing to comment?
Mr. Chair, we have 3 written correspondences that if you can acknowledge for the record.
Yes.
Thank you.
And let me see if I can find them so I
Not
get the
quite.
names.
Except for the ones for the Victoria, that was pulled off the agenda.
Okay, so it's just 2. It's we received correspondence from Robert Knight regarding 1910 Laguna Street, and then who was the other?
I think the other 2 were from the Victoria Street.
Okay, okay. So the other 2 had been pulled from the agenda. All right. Okay, and then so here's, and then so now we'll go back to the commission or to the presentation.
Yeah.
And why don't we just walk it through?
We'll just go
And
through.
as well, can we also bring up and make sure that because there's been a lot of drops and changes and those things, we'll just try to review their current status as well for whether the owner is requesting this stay on the potentials list
Yes.
first.
Oh, and we did want to pull up first the,
Oh, yes. Which
can you
one
give me
number
that
was that?
address again? 22.
225.
West Arenal.
West Arenal.
All the way at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here we go. This is 225 West Jana Nolley, constructed in 1925 in the Spanish colonial revival style. I think we did find it met criterion A for heritage to the city, for being in the Spanish colonial revival style, D for being in the Spanish colonial revival style, and E for its embodiments of character defining features. And it does retain enough historic integrity so that it does qualify for designation.
Okay. And would you like to comment at this time on the project? Okay. All right. Under discussion, questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, my comment is that we have a lot of Spanish colonial revival houses in this town that are much better than this one.
They want it removed. Why were you talking about it?
No, they
No, they want it.
they wanted the designation. They support the designation.
They support it.
Oh.
My,
I would agree. I don't believe that 225 West Yananali rises to the level of being designated.
I would say that we do have a lot of Spanish colonial little houses in this town, and that's part of what makes it nice.
Isn't that what we want?
And I agree that there's a lot better other examples, but I still find it as a charming little Spanish colonial house.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I'm a little confused because the note I made indicated that you wanted to just remain on the potentials list, or did you want it designated? You're fine with it being... Okay.
Leave it on
All right.
potentials.
Yeah. Or designated, they don't have any objection. Okay.
All right. Any other comments or discussion? Yeah, Commissioner Drew?
I think it's maybe a bit borderline, but I would support putting it on the list.
You mean designating it? You would support designating it?
Yes, I would.
Okay. As would I.
Commissioner Vena?
I would agree with that.
Okay. All right. Well, does anyone want to make a motion?
Are we making individual motions, or do we want to take care of this so they
Yeah,
can leave,
I think we're
correct?
making a motion for this.
Call for a straw vote, and it either makes it or it doesn't.
Oh, and then we'll just make one motion at the end
Yeah.
that wraps. That sounds good.
Or we'll just
Okay.
list out the ones you did.
All right. Straw vote for those who want to designate it a structure of merit. All right, 4-2.
So you have your answer.
All right. Yes, no problem. Okay, so now we'll go back to the top of our list and work our way through.
Are we boring you?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we front load everyone that's here, and then that way they can streamline. Yeah.
Okay,
See how nice this commission is?
So this was constructed in 1923 in the craftsman style. I'll just kind of I'll be brief since we have a lot to go
For
through.
13,
All right.
All right, so any questions? Or now, why don't we do a question, comments? Comments, Commissioner Lendick?
I again don't feel this rises to the level of significance for designation. I would not support this.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner House.
This was one that I was very borderline about, but I'm wondering, in the case where the owner actually would like it to be designated, why would I oppose that? So I probably could support.
You'd oppose it because it doesn't rise to the level of.
Commissioner Lendick, you gotta stay in order. You gotta ask.
Well, I was going to help him out.
Yeah. No, start with chair, and then we gotta keep order here. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Lendick, did you want
Yes.
to say something?
Yes.
Okay.
By our guidelines, is it an exemplification of a particular architectural style or way of life in the city? Or is it an exemplification of the best remaining architectural type in the neighborhood? Or its embodiment of elements demonstrating outstanding attention to architectural design, so on and so forth? Does it meet any of that criteria?
First one.
Why would we designate something that doesn't meet that criteria?
Well, no, that's a good point, and I think what the response is that it has to be both and. In general, it has to be both and. It has to rise to the level that you can make the arguments, and the criteria that are being argued by our urban historian are criterion A, D, and then it's broken out as to what portions and for why. So if you agree with that report, then that's the criteria. And we're also saying we only do that for people that are on the list and not objecting to it, and otherwise they're going to stay on the potentials list. So it's a both and thing. All right. So other
Mr. Chair?
questions, comments? Yeah, Commissioner Drury.
Yeah, I go back to the neighborhood test, and I think it's one of those, you can't just take it out of context. And the neighborhoods, especially the middle-class neighborhoods in this city, need to be protected. And this is a fine example of a family home built by your grandfather. I think these are the ones that are as valuable as any grand structure in Santa Barbara. I would support the designation.
Okay, Commissioner Van.
Likewise.
All right, so we'll do a straw vote. Just in terms of my, Commissioner Mahan, I don't know if I asked you.
I agree with Mr. Lendick.
Okay, and I would just, one minor twist to what you said, Commissioner Drury, I would say they are important, maybe not as much as the fanciest or the nicest examples that we have, which have additional character as well. But I think that they're important for certain reasons, and the reasons that you had said. And the reasons of criterion D, it's an exemplification of a particular architecture style or a way of life important to the city. And I think that some of the points that you made are part of that, and then part of is also the details that it has as a craftsman. It's not the greatest architectural example, but it is a nice kit house example and a modified kit house. So, all right. So with that, let's do a straw vote. Those in favor of designating it? Those against? All right, 4-2.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
Let me say something.
Yes.
You know, this is part of a preservation of neighborhoods, which adds to the quality of Santa Barbara and the history of Santa Barbara, even though they may not be top of the list, as been said, and so forth. I think it's like we're missing one section, and that's to preserve the neighborhood.
So,
Commissioner Lendick.
So, if 3 of the houses in that block, which were exemplary, have been designated, are you saying that this house is crucial to the preservation of the neighborhood?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
When you got three others that are.
Well, that may be,
That
but
makes-
the thing of it is, you eliminate one, and then something begins to happen, and then we regret not having introduced it into the neighborhood section.
The integrity of the streetscape, basically.
I mean, we're missing something.
Okay. So, and I think part of the little bit of this friction is also because we don't really have our neighborhood fully defined in terms of our ordinances and all that as well has been part of it. Well, we have it defined, but that's been part of the work as well, is to
think
recognize
we're
contributing
hoping-
elements.
Now that we're a CLG, to hopefully start doing more proactive survey work and looking at the blocks in a whole and.
Yeah, and looking at neighborhood structure and that. So part of it is just the bind that we're in.
It
but-
is.
but we're trying to also find a way out, so that's good. All right, so with that, it looks like you're 4-2-4 as well. Yeah, and your grandpa did a great job. All right.
Did we want to
All right, so who else is here for what item again? De La Vina?
300. Number
I'll
3
go
on
back
the
to
list.
you.
Okay.
She does not want to be on.
Yeah,
She'll have to remain on the potentials list.
Yeah.
Or it can go to try to remove vote, but that's
Without because it was a CEQA statement by a qualified historian.
We need another historic report that would actually make the findings, and then we have to judge that.
So
Yes.
straw vote to just keep it
So
on
yeah,
the,
so straw vote to keep 2300 De La Vina Street on the potentials list, just on the potentials list. Okay, and then you would like.
Oh,
to,
I don't care. I mean, it's.
Okay. We gotta do something with
Well,
it. You gotta vote.
I think it's unfortunate to leave buildings on the potentials list that have not met the criteria of being designated a structure of merit. I mean, to me, it seems counterproductive.
Actually, in this case, we because there has been a document that actually has weighed in on it and said that and judged it based on a historic structure. In this case, there's a historic structure report from 2011. So it definitely there isn't even a choice of saying we can just take it off our list, because there has to be a document that we accept that counteracts what some of the stuff that's already happened. Yeah.
Because they received, they received a categorical exemption. A project from going through an environmental impact report because they were not going to have a negative impact to this resource. So they would need a consultant to
that's actually
counter
a good-
that CEQA statement.
And that's actually a good point that I think we need to also clarify with commissioners as well. If there has been and we've seen this in the past to some degree, but it's the oddball. If there has been a historic structures report that found it to be significant in some way, and then a project happened and said they waited on that project and they said you can do that because you're doing it in a sensitive way and you don't have to do a whole CEQA massive thing. You can avoid all that and you can just be sensitive to the historic structure. Then that is still a historic structure as long as it played out as they had designed it. And if they didn't, then it's a question of why. But so we have to keep treating it like a historic structure, even if we think that it's kind of got dilapidated or wasn't a very good renovation or whatever it was. We have to stay consistent with that until there's another document that proves otherwise, that we agree to. So, okay.
Unfortunately.
All right.
Okay, and one last.
What's that?
He is here for Victoria.
yes.
No, potential.
Potentials list.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
So, did you? This
So, yeah,
is-
so what
this is. Yeah.
okay.
This is 27 through 37 East Victoria Street, constructed in 1925 in the Spanish colonial revival style by architect William Edwards. We do have some historic photographs. I mean, it was featured in the Pacific Coast Architect. It was also featured, I have a copy of it here, in the Architect and Engineer book on Santa Barbara in 1926, which has beautiful photographs. And here's also a picture from the Pearl Chase's photograph of it, as well as now. So you can see it retains really high integrity, completed by a historic style important to the city for our downtown by a very important architect, and qualifies as a structure of merit.
All right. Did you want to make any comments? No. Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair?
All right, Commissioner Drurig?
may I wax nostalgic?
If you must.
Long before it was Caudario, it was Dana's Toy Town.
Yeah.
And the neon sign had disappeared for many, many years, and Miss Railing found it. It's on the mesa, and it's in good shape, and it works. It's in somebody's backyard. Remember the jumping jack, the neon jumping jack? And
We don't allow neon signs in Santa Barbara.
What's that? We did, and that's where I spent a lot of my money on dinky toys and cap guns, up until about 2 years ago. Is that?
Really?
Did they really? I didn't.
For the
know.
record, they served
the
beer
kids.
in that toy store.
The minors.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
Long time ago?
That's a smart.
Makes the parents.
Someday.
So that was my nostalgia.
Mr. Chair.
All right, Commissioner House.
It's interesting, the picture on the left there, no awnings on the building, which is kind of preferable. You see more of the structure. But there was another picture in the staff report from 1925 that did have awnings on it.
But they weren't black awnings, right?
No. Well, it's hard to tell a black and white photograph, but they did not appear to be.
But they're retractable too, right?
They look
Yeah, it
like
looks
they might
like.
have been.
All right. Any
an
other
observation.
comments, questions?
Why did we jump to this item?
Because we have someone here that's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're trying to
I
get
think
through.
it's very, very important. I mean, this is a nice piece of architecture, but it's also very important to protect these single-story buildings as they keep giving us the view of the mountains.
Yeah.
And I'm very positive about this.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Reyna?
I only have one criticism, and that is that here we have palm trees, and the potential of some of these palm trees and other trees in Santa Barbara are specified without any consideration for the buildings to complement the scale. Here you have an example of a palm tree that's going to get up even taller than that. In all cases, all of these will surpass the structure. And I think we should be more considerate as to, or the park department, as to how they complement the building. If they have something that's way out of scale, it's like anything else, it's out of scale and it's not in proportion. And I just want to make this point so that we're aware of some of these things. Just putting in a tree doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing, because in the future, it is going to be either way out of scale, generally out of scale, as opposed to complementing the architecture by keeping it in scale. The variety of tree depends on some other criteria.
Duly noted. That's a good point. All right.
So, Mr. Chair, do we want to take a
Yeah, so
straw
let's do a
vote?
straw vote for those who want to designate this a structure of merit. All those raise your hand. Those against? Unanimous? For it. All right. Thank you.
Come back again.
Maybe that beer and toy idea is that might be something too.
But it was in the phase 1 report that was before the toy store.
Huh. Pretty cool.
Did you have a property that you want? Oh, okay.
Just here for the ARC report.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. All right, so now let's take it from the top.
Okay, let's go.
All right.
All right. So 2208 De La Vina is a half bungalow court. It doesn't fully go round. It was designed in 1948 in the minimal traditional style. I found that I did not think this was a great example of a bungalow court or a good example of the minimal traditional style. And I found it did not qualify for any of the criteria for structure merit designation. We have over 15 examples of bungalow courts that demonstrate excellence in design and materials that this one does not exemplify.
Mr. Chair, I would agree with that assessment.
Yeah. Any other discussion on commissioners? All right. So those who, let's just vote for, would like to, so we can remove it from the list altogether, and we could leave on the potentials list, or we can go for it as a structure of merit. Is there anyone that thinks that it should be designated a structure of merit? Okay, Commissioner Drury?
May I defend that?
Yes, please.
So my understanding is that a lot of the bungalows were built after the war, and because there was no housing, nothing to rent, nothing to buy. And my parents, the only reason I'm here and this is a really lucky thing for all of you, is that my parents were having to move out of the rental up on above Milpas on Canon Perdido on East Street, and there was no place for them to go. The people that owned the house were coming back. And a lady that lived at 1712 Loma said, well, I think the house below us on Grand is going to be for sale. And they went over that afternoon and bought the house. And otherwise, I'd be living in Taft, California. Anyway, but the reason I'm suggesting that this is important is because bungalows put a lot of dwellings on us in a small space. And I think it's really important to the history of the city, especially after the post-war housing situation. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner, any other commissioner comment or?
Yeah, I don't see that it raises to the level of.
Even with that poignant story?
No, well, that's nice try.
Even with that story, I don't think it raises to the level.
I thought you were going to say if they didn't, you wouldn't be here, period. If you didn't live in a court.
That's true,
so,
too.
And actually, so to sort of tag on to that, the thing that also that doesn't make it there for me is that's a half court. It's not, a bungalow half court.
Yeah.
It's like half a wheel.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite work. So I would agree with you, Commissioner Drury, if they had formed something, or if there was something more repeatable or sort of special about them. But I think it's
Sure.
Commissioner Bana.
Well, I'm in agreement with the commissioner here, namely because, we're going to lose them, and the bungalows disappear, and something else comes in, depending on property values and so on, and the economy, and pretty soon we lose all these little bungalows. I mean, they can't even come in and put in any more mobile homes, for that matter, which was another factor as far as finding homes for people, which was very effective and has been to date. Anyway, I'm always in fear of losing these to development, if you will, and namely like the small ones that are by this police department. They've been going off piece by piece, and now we have a couple of them that belong to a large development at this point. So, anyway.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, Commissioner House.
Since there apparently isn't any unanimity on any position, might I suggest maybe we just take a straw vote for keeping it on the potentials list to consider it another day?
Or versus removing it, basically, right?
Yeah, keep it on, and if that passes, then
I can go for that.
So yeah, I think that makes sense. And then otherwise, I think it's a removal because we actually don't have the findings to make it a structure of merit. In terms of, we'd have to make that argumentation for it as well. So it'll just be, the two straws will be whether you go remove it from the list or whether you say keep it on the potentials list. All right, so for those for keeping it on the potentials list, those for removing it, all right, keeping it on wins. All right. Hey, we voted together, Commissioner.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm going to take a break.
That's really frightening.
So 233 De La Vena Street was designed in the Spanish colonial revival style. It was designed by Henry Howell as a 12-unit apartment and still is a 12-unit apartment. And it was noted for its distinguishing features of the terracotta tile roofs, but the Monterey balcony, as well as the large arch opening into the courtyard, and the horizontal divided light windows, all contrasting against the smooth stucco walls.
I had a question, Ms. Hernandez. The shutters, they look pretty original.
They're on the drawings.
Yeah, they're on the drawings. I saw that. Is there, the thing that strikes me as odd is that they would close, but they would only cover one on each side of the windows. Is there a double shutter at all, or is there any sort of?
I didn't see one when I went out there. It is odd that.
Howell's as phony as the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, so there's one. I've seen it before. The detail done where you fold back the shutters into half size so that you could, in theory, at least open it all the way up. But
bifold.
Yeah, but I was just wondering if there was something.
No.
Yes, Commissioner Lennox.
I think a lot of times that shutter that doesn't close half the window is really there to close across an openable window. So that the window,
the center one stays still.
but the window can be open and the shutter can be across it.
Let me leave a little bit of.
Well, it just
Ventilation.
keeps the birds out and whatever, you know.
Mr. Chair?
Bird shutter. Okay. Commissioner Mahan.
Yeah, I think these are purely decorative shutters, because if they were operable, they would have those little jiggers on the bottom.
Oh, they do have a shutter dog up there, though.
This one does look like it has a shutter
Really?
dog.
I don't see it there.
Just a little
Over there?
mark.
There's some of them have it, so I think it was, some of them might have been broken
But
off.
on this one, down there.
You know, you called out a building very similar to this on Santa Barbara Street, up across from the park. And I think this is a better example of this particular style.
Yeah, I agree.
The arch and the
agree.
atrium, or the garden inside.
Yep.
I would certainly support, keep moving this to
Yeah.
to the potentials list.
No, it's on the
it's on
potentials.
to make it a designated,
Designated.
designated structure of merit.
I agree, let's vote.
Okay, so yeah, sounds good. Straw vote for those who want to make it a structure of merit. Raise your hand. Unanimous?
Okay.
All right.
Unanimous.
Okay. The next building is 224 East Figueroa. This is the stick style, one of the sub-styles of the Victorian era. It is really has some exemplifying features with the decorative brackets in the gable, the horizontal wood siding, the decorative divided lights in the windows, and the long decorative front door. I did speak with the owner, and he is in support of the designation.
All right, Commissioner. That was postponed.
That was taken off.
Yeah.
It just postponed, staying on the list.
All right. Any questions for before we vote, straw vote for East Figueroa, or comments?
Nope.
Questions, comments, questions? Commissioner Drury?
It's a gorgeous house.
I agree.
Let's vote.
All right. Sounds
Keep this
good.
moving.
Anyone else want to say it's not a gorgeous house? All right.
Beautiful.
All right. All those in favor of making a structure of merit?
Aye.
All right. Unanimous.
My question is, it's off the board or off
Yeah.
the chart.
Quick.
Why do they call it stick house?
They call it stick
Okay.
because the
1910 Laguna Street. This was.
Oh, can you hold on one second?
Rolling.
Sorry, there was a
on,
question.
let's go.
Go back to stick. It's called stick work. Is the vertical and horizontal divisions, not the siding, but the boards that divide the wall. This isn't as sticky as some of them are.
Stick.
But when you change your materials, there you go, up there. And then later Queen Anne started going crazy with all that stuff. But the stick was like the sort of a toned down version of it before.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. See, it wasn't so long.
No, good. Okay. 1834 Laguna Street. This is constructed in 1906 in the Craftsman style. It does have Craftsman style elements with the hipped roof with wide, unenclosed overhanging eaves supported by triangular brackets. They have 1/1 wood windows, wood shingles siding covers the house, and it also has a noted sandstone wall across the front.
Okay, any questions or comments on this?
See that.
I think it's very nice.
Commissioner Drury?
Well, I'm just glad to see that Ms. Hernandez is keeping alive the art of blowing up sandstone and having square blocks result. It's extraordinary. It is. You have to really know what you're doing.
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, so we'll go straw vote for making this a structure of merit. Unanimous? All right. All right, moving on.
Okay.
And just a reminder, Chair, we're within a few minutes of starting the next item. So if you can keep your comments, just whether or not you're for it.
yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This one is 1910 Laguna Street. This is the one you did receive public comment on. They did let me know that they would not be able to attend today, but did want the public comment known. I did want to just say they did ask what document the building came on the potentials list in the first place. It comes from
Right.
the surveys from the 1970s and 80s.
Oh, it's not, never mind. It's
And that is where they called it the Swiss chalet style, but it is sort of a vernacular in a sense that they did combine lots of elements of different styles in this one. And, we often start with that survey, and then those surveys didn't go through the criteria we have today. We start with that survey and then try and add the criteria in it so that you'll have findings to make. But of course, there's also more you can add or less, but that's where we come from when we prepare the report side.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner House.
I was interested in the comments that the owner of the house provided, and so I did a little research myself, and this is from Arts and Crafts Homes. I guess that's the URL as well. And I mean, he seemed to say this doesn't look like any chalet I saw in Switzerland, but it's a romantic American style. And also that's why I brought the Field Guide to American Houses, because it's got a section on there.
I think it's about as Swiss chalet as we're going to get on this side of the Mississippi.
So it definitely is consistent with that style.
Or the Atlantic.
Yeah. Okay, so, and I just wanted to clarify, he was asking to not designate it a structure of merit, right?
And I think to be removed, perhaps.
Yeah, he was asking to be, maybe even to be removed. So I think the question is going to be, should we either keep it on the particular, to give him the same treatment that we've been giving everyone else today, keep it on the list, potentials list, or remove it from the potentials list? Those are the kind of two
Mr.
options.
Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Mann.
I think that's a very important residential building in Santa Barbara, and I certainly think it should stay on the potentials list.
Yeah, I think that would be the best solution, since there's
The reason that it doesn't have the steep roofs like this, like the chalets, the Swiss chalets do, is because we don't have any snow in Santa Barbara.
The style was not
Mr. Chair, so the
They put
architect.
that out there. That's right.
It's not on.
Actually,
style didn't have steep
this
roofs.
reminds me a little bit of houses that you see in Germany, where they get more rain than snow, and the roofs aren't as steep, but they have all this half timbered of gingerbread.
Yeah. Commissioner Drury?
The architect of record is Christopher Torno. I'm assuming that Torno Road was named after him.
It is.
Yeah,
That's
thank
what
you.
it says somewhere in that report.
All right. So all those with keeping it on the potentials list? All right, unanimous? Okay.
Oh, God.
22 East Victoria.
This was also designed by William Edwards in the Spanish colonial revival style in 1925, just after the earthquake. This is, El Pueblo Viejo building, and followed the city's planning direction to build in the Spanish colonial revival style, right in our core.
All right. So, any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Mahan.
We've had a lot of architects coming in and wanting to do canopies on their buildings, and the commission has had trouble with a lot of those canopies. I would suggest that this is a really beautiful example of a canopy that works for Spanish colonial revival architecture, and we should use this as an example when another canopy comes in. This is a very beautiful building and should be moved up.
Well, let's vote.
All right. So, so why don't we vote on whether it's to be a historic structure of merit?
Yeah.
Those who find it, that want to vote for a historic structure of merit, raise your hand. All right, unanimous, 6-0.
What happened to 1718 Loma?
That was crossed off the list.
That was postponed.
No, wait, 1718 was
1718
removed from the list.
118 East Victoria. Ghost. Okay. Yes, and 1718 Loma was moved.
Oh, okay.
Was postponed.
Okay.
Sorry. So this next building is 311 East Victoria. It is another bungalow court in the minimal traditional style. This one's designed by Alex D'Alfonso in 1941. This one, we did find a lot of information about the building, including a newspaper article when it was constructed, about, again, new needs of small family renters, inspired design of 6 units. It's a full court in the minimal traditional style and designed by Alex D'Alfonso, who's a noted designer in the city. And the report has a lot of information as well on him, as well as it's noted because it also has a one of the distinguishing sandstone walls surrounding the property and retains good integrity.
Okay. All right. So, questions and discussion? Comments?
I don't support this.
Okay.
The architecture rises to the level of designated as structure of merit.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Mahan?
I like these two buildings. There's actually 2 of them. This is just a picture of one, but opposite the driveway, there's another one just like this, and they seem to be really well taken care of. This is 1941. This is still in the Depression. This is still in the Depression, and I think that this is a significant piece of architecture for its date and the way that it's been maintained.
Mr. Chair, I agree.
Commissioner House? Okay. All right. So let's say those who, it sounded like there's enough for designated historic structure. All right. So those who want to designate a historic structure? And those who are against it? All right. 5-1?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner House.
When we took things front-loaded and considered 301 West Pedregosa, I neglected to look at my sheet on that, and I just wanted to point out on the back under historic integrity, it says, by being the only surviving example of craftsman style in Santa Barbara.
Oh, correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Because if it was, we need to designate it right now. Okay, good catch. Let's see.
So now we have 413 East
Yep.
Victoria. So we're on to 414 East Victoria.
414.
414, sorry. This building, you see the Queen Anne elements here, but it has a craftsman style front porch on it that's level with the ground, not even walked up to. So you can kind of see the craftsman style beveled porch column. I found because of the craftsman porch that it doesn't contain enough integrity to convey a style important to the city.
Yeah.
I agree with
Other
that.
questions, discussions, comments? Those agree with that assessment?
Mm-hmm.
Removed from the
So
potentials
remove
list.
414 East Victoria. Okay. Straw vote for who wants to remove it from the list?
Why?
Because it doesn't. It does. As the
been
report
altered.
argues that basically adding the craftsman porch in front of the Victorian kind of confuses and messes things up, and so it
Doesn't
can't
meet the
even do
criteria.
the job of adding that.
Well, that's too bad.
architecture character. Yeah. Gosh darn those craftsmen. All right. So those for removing it from the list.
Mm-hmm.
Those for keeping on the potentials. Okay. 5-1.
The next one is 616 East Victoria, constructed in 1923. This one also, I found, did not have the requisite historic integrity to qualify. It had all of the original windows removed with vinyl window replacements. It also had the large addition that do not really allow it to convey its original appearance, so that it's been too sacrificed, in my opinion.
I agree with removing it.
Any other comments? Nope. All right. Those who want to remove it from the list? Are those who want to keep on the potentials list? Okay, 4-2 for removing it.
This one, the owner came, did we decide this is staying on the potentials list because the owner was here? 712 East Victoria.
What happened to 702?
702 got
Japanese
postponed
thing.
from, 702 is postponed.
Okay.
The owner was here and requested it stay on the potentials list, I guess. So we'll just
Yep, keep on the potentials.
keep going.
Yeah.
This is 10 East Jana Nolley Street. We reviewed this project when it was at the, when we removed all the white paint from the brick several years ago. And it's been on the potentials list as a vernacular style that was part of the culture at the turn of the century. It was originally a grocery store and was part of the industrial character of that era, of that portion of the city.
Was it a grocery store or produce warehouse?
Produce warehouse, sorry. But it said preserved, it served as a wholesale grocery store from 1923 to 1957. And it has the following character defining features of an industrial warehouse: red brick walls dividing these concrete pilasters that have the interesting headers at the top. It has 6-8 bays with wood divided lights and horizontal bands of 3 windows in each bay, defining it.
Mr. Chair?
All right.
I
What did
support,
they use
I
now?
support designating it.
Offices?
Offices.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Drury?
What Ms. Hernandez is failing to mention is the fact that she's the one that got all the brick exposed. I think it's a really
Yeah.
beautiful building.
Yeah, it helps.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So with that, straw vote for those in favor of designating it structure of merit? We got unanimous. All right. So, marching along. All right.
132 East Yananali Street. This was constructed in 1937 in the Spanish colonial revival style. And it's part of the West Beach area and has the big noted balcony that was on the original drawings as well. I included a photo of the front elevation. It retains much of its original intent of the original architect.
Okay. All right. Any questions, discussion, comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
Yeah,
Mann?
this is a really great neighborhood. We were driving around it, my wife and I, looking at all of these, and this definitely adds to the neighborhood and maintains the compatibility. I think is really important to keep this on.
Okay.
I support designation.
Commissioner House, Commissioner Drury, any comments or anything?
I support.
Words of wisdom.
All right.
No
so-
wisdom here.
All right, let's do a straw vote. Those who want structure of merit? All right, 6-0. All right. 133.
133 West Yananali Street, constructed in 1947. This has a more mid-century interpretation of the Spanish colonial revival style. It also had an addition on the rear. The waterfront survey found the building significant, which is how it was added to the potential historic resources list. But I did not find that it meets any of the criteria outlined in the code, as it's not an exceptional example of a mid-century interpretation of the Spanish colonial revival style.
Mr. Chair, I support removing it.
I agree.
I support removing it.
All right, Commissioner Bainey. Okay. All right, so let's do a straw vote. Those for removing it altogether? All right, we've got 6-0.
Okay, 136 West Yananali Street. This was constructed in 1924 in the Spanish colonial revival style over on the West Beach neighborhood, where there are quite a big collection of Spanish colonial revival style buildings. And one thing of note is the true divided light windows contrasting against the arched opening, and the arched opening has sort of an ornate classical surround.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner House?
I think it's a wonderful building, and it's also in the EPV book.
So it's a
And you are
hometown-
the author.
So it's a hometown favorite.
But it was recognized for being a contributor.
So you have to vote for it.
I have to.
Or disqualify yourself.
That's right. All right, any other comments? All right, so those for declaring a structure of merit. Commissioner Drury?
Mr. Chair, yeah, I don't see much difference between this and the one that we didn't accept. That had much the same stucco treatment, curves over the windows, and we didn't like that one, but we like this one.
Which one? The one that was...
Well, it was early on, and...
I liked it.
Okay, well then you're
Yeah, that settles it.
we
moved on from
You're
that
a good
one.
man. We've moved on, have we? Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right.
Don't relitigate it.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, and finally, 216.
We have to.
All right, we
take
got a straw
vote.
vote. Straw vote
sorry.
for
Designating.
136 West Jana Nolley, designate structure of merit.
Yeah.
All right, 6-0.
Okay, so finally, I will say that this is a streamlined modern style constructed in 1937. And I put the survey photo from 1978 just so you could see it without the trees. And it was recently purchased and restored, and they actually found a winding staircase inside that had been enclosed, and they reopened the staircase, and it went through a really great restoration recently.
The architect here.
We don't know who the architect is, and I couldn't find original drawings either, but it's one of our few streamlined modern styles in the city, so.
And done in Spanish. It's really interesting.
And also in the EPV book.
So again, you can't vote against it.
Mr. Chair,
All right,
I think this is
Commissioner
really, this is a very special
This is a
building.
special
and
building.
We don't have very many of these in Santa Barbara. We need to protect it.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so straw vote. Those want to declare structure of merit? All right, unanimous, 6-0. All right, so, and now we need a motion to ratify everything we just straw voted on.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to ratify the straw votes that we just passed through.
I'll second that.
All right, under discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, and is there an appeal period for this?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, 10-day appeal period to City Council. All right. Okay, so now we are on to we are only 10 minutes behind.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Okay, we are
I'm the whip.
on to item 4, Historic Structures Report for 310, 314 West Junipero Street and 2403, 2407 Bath Street.
We've had our fill of historic stuff, I think.
This
We're exhausted.
is a
You can
historic
do
day.
this as you will.
All right.
Yes.
All right, so this is for requesting acceptance of a Phase 1 Historic Structures Report prepared by Alexander Cole. The report concluded that the 4 buildings located at 310 and 314 West Junipero Street and 2403 and 2407 Bath Street are not considered eligible as city landmarks, structures of merit, or the California Register of Historic Resources. Therefore, no further study is required. All right, so welcome. Please state your name. Oh, there we go.
Thanks. Are you on? Members of the committee?
What are you on?
I'm on.
right.
I'm in the EPB.
Oh, okay.
Alexandra Cole, preparer of the report,
Brian Cornell.
who's representing Cottage Hospital.
Okay. So, so why don't you give us a summary of your report, and then we'll open up for public comment, and then we'll have questions from the commission.
All right, thank you. These 4 buildings are in the Cottage Hospital area, 2 on West Junipero and then 2 on Bath Street. And this was an area that started out long ago as residential, and then when Sanson Clinic came, or Cottage Hospital.
City TV, can you zoom in? And then if you would also, any pointer or things like that that you want to operate. Okay. City TV, can you zoom in?
Hello.
So this is Bath, and this is Junipero. The Nat building is right across the street here, and then this is Cottage, is basically their physical plant building.
So these are the four buildings, the two with the lighter beige roofs and one with the darker brown and then the one with the black roof. These are the four. And it started out as a residential area, then Cottage Hospital came in, and now the whole area has really been converted to Cottage Hospital offices and or various medical uses. And so the 310 was built in 1930 and is a Pueblo style. I mean, a stucco style.
Here we go. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's 314, excuse me, I want to start with 310.
That was 310, I'm
Was
pretty sure.
it?
Yeah. That's the little one on the alley.
Oh, this is 314. Excuse me one second.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. And it's you're tackling four structures, so it's at once. So you can just
314 is right here.
Okay, yes, all right.
Okay.
The Hopi style one.
Yes, that's what we hope you're Pueblo style. Thank you, Mr. Bendit. Absolutely, that's the Pueblo style. And that had a number of alterations to it. It had...
you want to use it.
Okay. It had a number of the
Parapet?
See upside down. No, the windows had
windows,
all
yeah.
been,
Yeah.
I can look up, thank you. I can't do as
That's
Paul
okay, I can do
Williams
it. I'll do
did,
it.
do it upside down the way he could. Those are all new windows, plastic frame. The back door there is hollow core. And so,
That's new, too.
yeah, and that's been added in.
Okay.
So I felt because of those changes that it didn't have integrity.
All right, and then let's go to the next one.
Thank you.
So that's that.
310.
Yes, and that was the one that was built in 1930, and it's a vernacular cottage. And again, I felt that because of all the alterations, I know when Cottage Hospital took it over, they put that veranda, they put the raised steps, the porch, and so forth. And if you can go on to the next photo. It's so much easier looking at it right side up. I'm impressed with you people, you architects. And then the one at the top is a replacement door, modern door. And then the bottom one shows the, on the right, it was an addition to the original building. And I think there's
This
another.
portion here.
Yes, thank you.
All right, and then this was another shot of it.
Yes, and that's another rear addition.
Yeah.
And so because of these, and this is, yeah.
Now we're on Bath
Yes.
2403.
2403, that was a craftsman house built in 1912. And this is it's undergone a number of changes. This is the front facade, and if you look over there on the left, I mean on the right, excuse me, you'll see that, no, on the right there, you'll see that whole porch was enclosed in the 1940s. And then the porch itself was extended. It used to go only as far as the edge of the building, and they've since extended that and made it concrete and put the concrete steps.
And then that's our shot of it.
Yes, and so on the upper photo, if you look over on the left, it is a later edition with windows that aren't craftsman. You can see some of the craftsman details over on the right that have remained. And then that's another addition.
Oh, yes, right.
Right.
Okay, and then on to...
Yes, and
That's
these,
the same.
yeah, these are all the back, but more rear additions. See, the only really craftsman.
We got a door.
Door. I mean, you just think, oh, wow, if only they'd kept everything, that would be eligible. But there have just been too many alterations.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay. All right, do you have any other?
2407,
Yeah.
2407.
These two.
Yes. And here's the
Another shot of
2407.
it here.
Yeah, that's 2407, and that was built in 1912, and it's a vernacular house. And again, what's happened is when Cottage Hospital took it over, that's their hospitality house, where they have people stay who have relatives staying in the who are in the hospital, and this has multiple units where the people stay. And this has been altered. Again, if you look up at the front door, it's a modern front door. Cottage put that overscale classical column in there, changed out the windows on either side of the door, put the modern porch.
Well, they also added a door into the side that we really can't see in this photo.
Right. And so that's, from my point of view, there are other alterations around the back, but if we're looking just at the front facade, that used to have a very simple door frame that went across it that seemed to be in keeping with the vernacular style of the building, but that has taken that away. And these are all a number of additions that have been added. Wood steps, modern railings, and at the bottom there's another addition which is on the north elevation. And then there's one more building at the back, which was built in just in a modern style in 1951. And we were figuring that possibly that was because after the war, there were so many people who were coming to move into Santa Barbara that this multi-unit might have, this was 6 units, might have been for that. And so again, this is just a standard concrete block U-shaped building, and because of the modern alterations, if you see at the back, that's the back. They put again a little, yeah.
These windows were altered here.
Mm-hmm. And there's another picture to show. Okay, this was a new window with fixed panes. Then you've got the modern doors. And for these various reasons, and the hollow core doors, I felt that again the alterations took away any kind of integrity that they might have to become eligible. So it was really, on all 4 of them, it had to do with lack of integrity, which is why I made the finding that it would be all right to remove them.
Okay. All right, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does. Thank
All right,
you,
great.
Chairman
Thank you.
Bumbine.
So now we'll open public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item? All right. Seeing no one, I will close public comment and back to the commission for questions. We'll start with questions.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
Do we see, I think, 310 Junipero? I think that was the first.
314?
That's the second one.
Oh, wait, 310.
That's
Yeah,
this one
310.
in the middle.
Yeah. Not the Pueblo-ish.
No, the Pueblo, the Pueblo, so is that 314?
That's
314.
It's 314. Yeah. West Junipero.
And that's the
No,
front of it?
that's the 314, so it's the next one.
Yeah, that's.
Is this the one you want to see?
Oh, that's the
Yeah.
one. Oh, okay.
That's
So the
Pueblo.
front is the south facade, right? And then we're looking back, so we're looking
And now
north,
this, yes.
or
and
south, I mean.
Yes, and so that's the north elevation with the door. And then the west.
That's from that's the original?
No.
No, it's not
That's a hollow
original.
core door.
Oh, okay.
And all the
I'm
windows
talking
have
about
been
the
re-
top photograph?
This one right
No,
here?
it's just an entry.
This
but
is
they-
matching this. It's some sort of gate.
Okay, all right. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Other questions? Questions about the report?
Did I read that there were no plans on 204, 2407, 2409. There are no plans at all.
No.
But you were able to find a permit.
No, it was a 1980 survey photo
I see.
that enabled me to see what it originally looked like.
So, but the 1912 date,
No, that appeared in the survey.
I see.
That's where I got it, you know. When
Interesting, you would have both those buildings, no plans, no permits. whatever.
well, that was too early for permit.
But 1912, yeah, but the back building.
Oh, no, couldn't find any.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions? Questions? All right, comments on the report?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Guerra?
I have no problem with the report. I have a problem with these buildings, one after another, all of them historic, were modified to the point where they cannot be supported as historic structures. And I don't know how that happens, but an express is here, a new door there, a couple of windows, and the fabric of the structures changed. And therefore, I mean, we have no basis to preserve these buildings. And I find that really kind of chilling. And I don't know how we could stop, because if it's de facto, these things are brought to us as part of a historic structures report. I have no problem with the report. I think it's accurate. But the fact that we have to even deal with these, because the ideas are going to be demolished. There's no protection for these buildings at all because they were messed with in the first place.
Let me ask you a
How
question
how
about
is that?
Yeah.
Of staff.
So,
Were any of these on a potentials list?
Permits for
none
this
of
stuff?
them are on the potentials list, but,
Sorry, I didn't hear.
none of them are on the potentials list,
Right.
and we only added the demolition review ordinance in 2004, which meant that everything, whether it's on the potentials list or not, gets reviewed for if it's historic or not. So a lot of things before that time, if they'd done alterations, it didn't stand the test of time. I mean, we can't go back, but we're lucky we have the demo review ordinance now, but we still have the problem, try, I mean, everything that comes through that's over 50 years old, they send to me, but things that were done before that time.
And they may have been unpermitted. A shed roof here, a back entrance there, and suddenly this building that was a 1912 Craftsman, let's say, and all of a sudden it's not protected.
Yeah.
Because,
and
I
think
hope
we're one of
that-
the
I hope
luckiest
we can
communities that have that demolition review ordinance.
used to I don't know if the neighborhood should be called a neighborhood anymore because the tentacles of Cottage Hospital have expanded far and wide.
Healing tentacles.
Right.
The healing tentacles.
So it's kind of the buildings that have stood the test of time long enough to get in front of you.
And I have used the healing tentacles I have great respect for the Cottage Hospital. But
I want to be clear though too that it's not Cottage that did all these things. I mean, for instance, this one here that was done as a doctor's office. At some
no,
point
I
that
understand.
Cottage
I know what you're
acquired.
trying-
I understand. That's just
and
an
that's
outgrowth.
what brings the historic ones up to the top because they're the ones that stood the test of time.
Yeah.
And people
Well,
maintained
I'm
it.
just saying
so-
that along that note, one of the things I was thinking of with this report as well was that the nice thing is it actually makes us feel good about what happened earlier today with all the buildings that we were reviewing and keeping on a potential list and the review process of that. Because clearly, I'm jumping the gun but my opinion of these is that I think the report's right and that these don't rise to level and they have been changed and messed with over time and none of them were on the potentials list. So that's kind of part of the importance of having a list and also for the future of having additional lists actually going out there and figuring out what we have because there is plenty that's still out there that we haven't realized.
And I will say, for the California Environmental Quality Act gives us in California that opportunity to look at buildings that are even eligible and analyze them. In most other places, if you're not designated, you don't even.
And Mr. Chairman, I just finished and say that the report is a good report, and also we also have a new phrase. The healing tentacles of Cottage Hospital. I find that to be
I'm
most
pleased that it's-
uplifting.
I'm pleased
Thank
that
you.
it's attached to my report.
Mr. Chair.
I think,
All right, Commissioner
I think
House.
Ms. Rydell might put that in the minutes, the healing tentacles.
Please don't.
Thank you anyway.
In consideration of the fact we're
I have
15
nothing
minutes
further
behind,
to
I will make a motion agreeing with the findings of the report and accepting the report.
I'll second that.
A motion by House and a second by Mahan to accept the report as submitted. Any discussion? Commissioner Drury?
No, I was going to say aye.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you
Nicely
very
said.
much.
Thank you for your good report.
Thank you.
Can we take a little break?
Yes. We can take a, we'll do maybe a 10-minute recess.
Yes.
Sorry, Brian.
Power back up. Coffee back up.
Little healing tentacle.
I'm not repeating it.
Peeling tentacles.
Oh, okay, yeah, and actually, I'm gonna have to step down, so.
Okay.
No, but yeah, he knows, he's gonna.
Okay, do you have your copy of the minutes?
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, and do you want you have your copy of the, okay, are we back? Okay, great. Calling to order, Historic Landmarks Commission, March 4th, 2020. So we are on to item 5. The Archaeology report for 20 East de la Guerra Street, Plaza de la Guerra. And actually, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but I'm going to have to step down for this due to my association with the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation and their interest in this project. So, all right.
So you'll be dealing with me.
I'll be, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
That's a lot.
Mr. Substitute Chairman?
Yes.
Could I have a question to staff on this item?
Please.
What is the difference between the draft that we saw dated June of 2019 and this draft that we're seeing now dated February of 2020? They're both phase 2. They're both drafts. They both look like they have the same thickness, number of pages. So what's the difference?
So, Mr. Chair and to Commissioner Lenvik, the report was previously reviewed for 20 East de la Guerra Street, continued indefinitely with comments, and I believe Vice Chair House will read through those comments. It's our understanding that the applicant is coming back addressing the comments listed from that last motion and requesting acceptance of the report.
So we have a document that will tell us what's changed then.
No, I will tell you what's changed,
Oh.
and then they will give their presentation. So the minutes from the meeting of, what was the date of that meeting? December 11th, okay. Add the Wagon Reader Map, check various dates for consistency, add orientation information on the photos. I think they were lacking compass directions or something like that, looking north, that sort of thing. Give a graphical representation of the approximate extent of the Midden on the map on page 5, and remove the language as currently designed on page 47. So that was what we were asking them to do. So, you want to proceed with your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Commission. Sarah Isa, Senior Planner in Public Works. We were here in December. Ms. Colleen Hamilton of Applied Earthworks made the revisions to the report, as you see today, and she's available to answer any specific questions you may have.
Welcome back. So, do you want to kind of run through those and just show us where those changes were made?
Sure. So the Wagon Reader Map has been added as page 2-1.
And apologies, if you can just get really close to the microphone and make sure it's on.
Okay.
Thank you.
There you go.
So, I don't see a 2.1 in
Okay,
here.
so it is figure 2.1.
Figure 2.1.
On
okay.
page 8.
Okay, thank you.
Page 8?
Page 8. So the Wagon Reader Map has been added, and a discussion
All
has
right.
been included in the research design, bringing the Wagon Reader Map
Can you put that up into the middle of the screen now?
Sure.
into focus. So
And
at the
zoom in maybe on.
City TV, please. Zoom in. Okay. Anyway, there's the Wagon Reader Map.
There you go. So at the bottom of the second paragraph, it says, in 1851, 1852, Salisbury Haley surveyed the city, imposing a grid system over the existing street patterns.
Which page are you reading from? Oh, here, okay, page 7.
Yes.
Okay.
Its effect was to entirely disrupt Hispanic Santa Barbara, eliminating buildings and altering land ownership patterns, as well as opening its city to large-scale real estate speculation.
Uh-huh. And which comment from the,
So that's the one regarding the Wagon Reader Map.
okay, okay. All right, check various dates for consistency. I don't remember specifically what the issue was with that.
That was the date that the De La Guerra mansion was built, speculatively between 1818 and 1828.
Okay.
So that date has been replaced throughout this document and the
Okay.
work plan.
Okay,
And that's at various locations, so.
okay. And orientation information likewise occurs, yeah, so facing southeast, that would be an
Yes,
example of what you've
yes,
done. Okay.
exactly. So those have been added to the figures where they actually warrant direction. There are
Okay.
some that direction doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, okay.
So those have
All right.
okay, and then on the page that you just turned,
This
so
one?
that would be page 27.
Okay. Figure 4-5.
Figure 4-5, the limits of the Midden have been shaded in.
Oh,
So
okay.
right there.
Okay.
And that's based on the findings in the various tests that were made.
And De La Guerra is here?
Yes,
Okay.
De La Guerra is here.
Is there?
It's up there,
Okay.
yeah, the
All
top.
right, I wasn't sure. I, for some reason, remembered the Midden towards the back, but no, it was,
No, it's up next to the street.
okay. What was in the back, the old outhouse or something?
The old, the privies
Privies, okay.
that dated to the first city hall.
Okay. And I also don't remember what remove the language as currently designed on page 47 was about.
So that was changed because the design is still in progress.
Oh, okay.
Project plan design is still in progress. So we took that, we systematically went through the report and took that out.
Okay. Do you have anything more to present?
Yes, there's one more map. Let me find it. Excuse me. Sorry. That it's a fold-out map that actually shows the profiles of the midden that was found. Here you go. It is on page 22. So in order to make this more reader-friendly, we've added an insert map that shows on the other, that shows where these individual excavation profiles are within the midden. And then we've added a legend that explains what each one of those zones represent within the profile.
Okay. Is that it then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I will open it for public comment. If there's anybody that has comments on this particular agenda item. Apparently not, so I'll close public comment and open it to the commission for questions. Commissioner Lenvik.
Yes, thank you. Staff, do you have, I don't recall the discussion. Was there minutes that spoke to, other than just the 6 points that were raised?
Mr. Chair, and to Commissioner Lenvik, there isn't anything in the minutes beyond what Commissioner House pointed to. Thus far, we haven't reviewed a project design. It's only been limited to the archaeological report. So it was reviewed the first time. These are the comments from that meeting, and this is the second time the report has come before the commission for acceptance.
And I seem to recall there will be a phase 3 once there's a design. Is that right?
That's,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, sorry?
Commissioner Lenvik, you have more questions?
I want to continue, if I might.
Sure.
If I recall, I was not enthused about the report that we saw previously. And the reason was, if I recall, is that I saw the midden as being simply a party dumping ground. And the report was attaching a great deal of relevance to it. And I just don't believe there is a lot of relevance, although I'm not qualified to argue with the report writer. I would like maybe to have in the report a description of what a midden is, what an archaeological midden is, just for the benefit of the people like me who maybe don't know what a midden is. I don't believe there is a description of what a midden is in here, but from everything that I understand, a midden is an archaeological term for a trash dump or a garbage heap. And it results, from a deliberate discard of refuse, food, domestic materials, whatever. And it's also found everywhere where humans live or have lived. And archaeologists love them. They love middens. But I think it's important that we understand what they have found in that midden area on the front, we'll call it the front of the property, the north side of the property. And I would ask that a description of what a midden is, an archaeological midden is, be made part of the report, if that's not unreasonable.
Well, I mean, I would first observe that if it's not a highly technical term and the dictionary definition satisfies that, that should be sufficient. But how would you respond? Is there any information on the importance of a midden?
Midden develops over a period of time. It's not, rarely does it represent a single event. It is accumulation of trash. There are middens that date to the prehistoric period. They're not everywhere. The preservation, much like with buildings, there's differential preservation, and certain kinds of midden are very rare. And I would suggest that this, in my opinion, this particular midden, dating to the early 1820s, where we don't have a lot of historical records about what was going on at the time of settlement in Santa Barbara, gives us an opportunity to investigate the physical remains and allows us to piece history back together based on the results of our excavation. I think that's been shown at the Presidio. The Trust has done quite a bit of investigation around the Presidio, and it is midden there where they are recovering the artifacts. The artifacts recovered from Plaza de la Guerra are very specific to the time of trade in the early 1820s. So because we don't have a lot of records from that time, the archaeological data becomes that much more revealing in terms of what we can know about early Santa Barbara.
So if this is,
I just wanted to ask you a question. Are you feeling that the report needs to have an explanation of what a midden is, or does it need more information on the significance of this particular midden?
I think it needs to tell us what a midden is, because I think from what I read in this case, it's a dump. It's a place where they threw this stuff.
Yeah.
It's not where they were, and partying in particular. Not where they were living and putting it outside their kitchen window. That's my impression. The report also on page 42 and elsewheres says that so on and so forth, public interest in the archaeological remains of this time period. And it goes on to say, given the significance of the plaza to the development of Santa Barbara, the remains are associated with important local historic events. What historic event occurred in this at this site?
Barbecues.
Barbecues, exactly. Barbecues.
I think this
But that's the
particular
point.
area of the city was the main core of social events, but not just social events, but also meeting grounds, much like it is used today.
But you're saying that. You haven't documented that. You're just saying, well, it's important because historic events occurred here. But I don't know what the historic events are. Historic events.
Mr. Chair, and then to Commissioner Lundvik, just a reminder to always address the chair, not speak out of turn. But as a comment, you can request as a condition of acceptance of the report if it is at your discretion, but to add a condition that they include a definition of midden, if you want to include that.
Sure. Okay. Well,
I'm just trying to get at
what
would satify you. I mean, just the definition.
My concern is that somebody is going to come along and use this document in the future. And they're going to use it, in essence, to probably either run the costs of the improvements to De La Guerra Plaza up horribly high, or deny the remodel of De La Guerra Plaza. And I think that the decision makers down the road have got to have good factual information if they make overriding considerations. Whatever they do, they got to have good overriding, a good understanding. And right now, I believe, from what I read, is that the middens are trash dumps. They are the result of a sedentary lifestyle. People are living there; they're not migrating, moving around. and we don't see whole plates. We don't see, whatever. We can't find the privy as if the privy was going to have something in it. And so, we can't build there because there was a privy there, but we can't find anything in the privy. And we can't build on all of the Midden area in front because a lot of people were throwing their broken dishes and empty beer bottles and whatever there, and we didn't have Marburg, to clean up and haul stuff away. They were chopping up the cows and the bones and whatever, and then we infer that there were important historic events occurring there. Well, we certainly can't build on a place that had important historic events for which they have thrown a lot of stuff in the ground. And I think it's confusing right now what we have. It is very focused on a trash dump being a valuable thing.
Okay, well, could you address that and the extent to which the fact that there's a Midden there would preclude something being built, or are there mitigation measures that could be employed?
The phase 3 is what the mitigation measure would be.
Yeah.
And on page 1, second paragraph, there's a paragraph introducing exactly how that area was used and why this specific Midden is of archaeological interest.
Okay.
Hold
on. I'm disinclined to second guess the professionals and tell them how they need to write their report or what they need to add. And it seems to me a thorough report, but I think maybe the best way is to take a straw vote.
Well, let me make a comment here. You don't like second guessing the professional, but why is it here? You ready for us to rubber stamp something?
To accept the report and its conclusions.
Well, I'm not willing to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
number
may
one.
be only one person.
But number, I would like in the report for there to be a very clear definition of what a Midden is.
Okay.
I
understand.
I don't think that's unreasonable to ask, so that a novice who is reading it, and all the decision makers down the road are going to be novices and inexperienced people, so on and so forth.
I personally would disagree with that. I would like to take a straw vote and find out if how many others feel that this report should come back to us with additional information in it about what is a Midden, and that's mostly what you're asking for.
Chair, it seems to me that the question really is, are there different kinds of Middens? I think most of us know what a Midden is. Or we could go to a dictionary and look it up. But are there different kinds of Middens? Is this a really important Midden because of the De la Guerra house, as opposed to, say, over in Goleta, there are some Middens over in Goleta that may not be as important, or may be more important. I think really what the Commissioner Lendick's getting at is all Middens aren't created equal, and not what is the definition of a Midden, but how does this Midden qualify in terms of Midden? There are Middens that aren't very important, and there are Middens that may be very important, and probably the Middens around Monticello are extremely important.
Mm-hmm. And there's a private ranch out in Goleta, might be less
right. So I think that would be important to add. Do you understand?
Or do you feel your address?
I do. As a matter of fact,
reasonable question.
The second the second chapter of the report is all about the research design and why this particular Midden is important.
It is very important.
And what kind of information we could hope to find out if we were to do excavation.
Okay, so you feel that your report already addresses that? Mr. Chair?
I'm more than happy to define Midden, but I think it's a fairly simple concept.
Yeah.
It is not just a party trash. It can take many different forms. It can be a community Midden. It can be associated individually to a specific structure. Mm-hmm. In this particular case, because the Plaza area was an important social unit associated with the De La Guerras. It represents a common space between the adobes that bordered that common space, the plaza. The plaza concept developed very early on in Santa Barbara and has continued to be an important concept in the community, coming together and sharing social events. Not just social events, that's where the City Hall was built, at the edge of the plaza, because it was a community focus.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that would be my response.
Uh-huh.
If that doesn't come through clearly in the report, well, then that's something we need to consider.
Okay. Commissioner Drury, you
Chair,
have comments.
so I would say that the two things, the important historical record is that suddenly there's different ceramics. And that reflects, in a broadening way, the arrival of ships from other countries. In this case, I think the British Empire, right?
That's correct.
So that's important in terms of the fabric of what happened to Santa Barbara after that occurred, and those trade routes became established. But I think a Midden, I think you can do, isn't there in the beginning of all these archaeological reports, there's sort of a boilerplate description of the Proto-Indo arrival, prehistoric arrival, and then sort of a little roadmap. It takes, I think, 2 or 3 paragraphs. It's boilerplate. Read it. We get those every time we get and I think a Midden would just fit right in there in a boilerplate way, just what is a Midden and a general idea of what a Midden is. I think we all know what it is. I think Commissioner Lembeck wants a more detailed record than what you are providing already, in my opinion. That's
Well,
all.
I just don't want to get into a situation if we send you away to make revisions to this report that there are yet other issues that are raised the next time it comes back. So I am not personally seeing something that significant. I think, we can't anticipate the level of expertise of everybody that reads this and define every obscure term and stuff. I don't know. I'm comfortable with the.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Isn't that something that can come through consent and go on, continue on?
Mr. Chair, as I suggested earlier, if this is the report prepares professional opinion. If you do want just a boilerplate definition of Midden added, that could be something where you are accepting the report and with the condition of including that language, which would be reviewed by staff, which we wouldn't have the report come back to you, unless you feel strongly that you want to see the report again. So that.
Okay,
that is an
let me
option.
take a straw vote. How many people feel that the report is acceptable as presented today? Okay, then I think I would like to entertain a motion to that extent to accept the report.
Make a motion to accept the report with the stipulation, the condition that a boilerplate description of a Midden is included. We won't see the report again.
No, it'll be reviewed by
Right,
staff.
It'll be reviewed. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Second.
Motion by Drury, second by Vena. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, come back.
Commissioner.
Isn't that supposed to be a 5-minute one? I'm just saying. Okay. All right. So now we are on to item number 6, Archaeology report for intersection of Olive Mill Road, Coast Village Road, and Jameson Lane, which is Commissioner Drury's favorite lane. Jameson?
No, I think that's a Protestant whiskey.
Okay, so this is requesting acceptance of a Phase 1 Archaeology Resources Report prepared by Rincon. All right, welcome. Please state your names for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I just want to make one comment. The report was reviewed by Dr. Glassow, our environmental liaison, and he does agree with the report's recommendations and conclusions.
Okay, thank you. All right, welcome. Please state your names for the record.
Laura Yanez, Project Manager for the City of Santa Barbara.
Susan Zamudio Corolla. I'm an architectural historian with Rincon.
Chris Duran, Principal and Senior Archaeologist with Rincon.
Okay.
I will add that Walter Rubalcaba from the County of Santa Barbara is also here in the back. And Megan Arcinega, the project planner.
All right. Oh, there we go. Okay, great. Okay, so why don't you, let me just make sure I'm finding it here first. It's this one right here. Yeah. Okay. All right, so why don't you give us a summary of your report and your findings, or, yeah, your approach.
I can jump in here. So we were initially contracted to do the study, which required some Caltrans oversight. So the study actually didn't follow the standard MEA format for the city. With Caltrans as a reviewing agency, we provided it in their format. So we conducted the archaeological Phase 1 investigation for the project, primarily located along Olive Mill, and we did the record search, found some resources outside of the project area, didn't find any archaeological sites within the project area. Project area is mostly developed, it's roads, housing, things of that nature. We did do Native American outreach on behalf of Caltrans as part of the background information, and we did get a couple of comments from some of the tribes requesting monitoring during ground disturbance. However, based on our review of the existing data survey, we found that a significant amount of testing had occurred adjacent to the project area, mostly disturbed, although there were some artifacts that were found along Jameson Lane to the east. There very few prehistoric artifacts and a lot of modern intrusions located there. So based on our review of the data and our survey data, we concluded that the project is actually outside of the archaeological sensitivity zones as identified in the MEA. There were no archaeological sites directly within the project site, and that monitoring would not necessarily be required. In particular, we couldn't put that in a Caltrans report. If we were to recommend monitoring, they would kick it back and require us to remove it. So we kind of carried those same conclusions forward into the MEA document. Based on everything, we think there's a really low likelihood that you're going to find intact archaeological resources during construction.
Okay, thank you. Was there actually, so does that conclude your presentation of your report? Anything? Okay. So with that, I'll open public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this? All right, seeing no one, I'll close public comment and back to the commission for questions about the report. Questions?
I do have one question, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drury?
Why is it going to ABR? I mean, we're seeing this report, but it says it's going to be reviewed by the city's Architectural Board of Review.
So, Mr. Chair, and then to Commissioner Jury, as you know, all archaeological reports do come before your commission. They're not reviewed by the ABR or SFDB. However, this project for the Olive Mill Roundabout is outside of HLC's purview. It's in a different jurisdiction of the city. Thank you.
Otherwise, I have no question.
All right. I had a question. So on page 2, you have under number and types of identified archaeology resources. So 64 previously recorded cultural resources within a 1-mile radius of the APA. 3 of these resources were recorded adjacent to the APA, and none were recorded within. Right. Do any of these, those within that mile, those 64 resources, do any of those indicate the potential for Native American, sort of a grounds for why there might be a cause for having Native American?
There are several prehistoric resources in the area. Some, like I said, they're adjacent to the project site. I believe they're on the county side, not on the city side. There's always the potential to find archaeological resources anywhere you're digging. I mean, we're basing our analysis off of what we found in existing data. In our opinion, there's potential to find things, but based on the amount of disturbance, those are likely not going to be intact resources. Therefore, they would not be eligible for the California Register. So even though there could be something, they're not really going to be significant, most likely.
And then as a follow-up, you're recommending no archaeologists present while digging? Is that the?
Yeah, and that's largely because of the format of the report, because Caltrans, if I were to make a recommendation to have a monitor present in a Caltrans report, they would reject it and require that I remove that language. So what actually happened with a similar project on the county side, just down the road, the county, as a condition of approval, required a monitor because they understood the same thing, that Caltrans would not allow it. In our opinion, I think even monitoring, it's with the amount of disturbance here, there's going to be a low potential. And I believe, as it was stated, Mike Glassow did agree with that conclusion. So,
okay.
Mr. Chair, I will add to both Mr. Glassow and Barbara Shelton, the city's environmental analyst prior to retirement, reviewed the report and agreed that the conclusions were consistent with the city's MEA guidelines for archaeological resources and their treatment. The city standard is to still apply the discovery measure, so if anything is encountered, work is halted and the appropriate monitors are contracted. That would still remain applicable, but what the report concludes is that monitoring during construction, which is typically applied per our MEA when we anticipate there to be something of substantial resource. So the report conclusions are consistent with the city's MEA guidelines. And so staff did review that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And just as a point of clarification, because for archaeology reports, we really don't have much power. But as I understand it, the one part we do have weight or control of recommendations is this portion of it. Is that right? In terms of what the not mitigation measures, but what the recommendation measures are for. Is that correct? And maybe Ms. Plummer can weigh in. So we're talking about so what we can and can't do with archaeology reports, and what we can do is very small, and it has to do with, if you can summarize so as I understand it, has to do with whether we think the mitigation or the review methods are acceptable or not.
So our process is when an applicant submits an archaeological report, it is reviewed by our environmental analyst and environmental liaison, Dr. Glassow, as well as by the case planner. So they're the first tier that reviews it for consistency with our MEA, and then it goes to the commission for an official approval. The report preparer's official opinions are the report. You don't have to accept the report, but it is here for acceptance today, and it has been reviewed consistent with our MEA guidelines.
Okay, but we had a discussion about this. I want to say it was like half a year ago or so. But just in terms of what we can and can't, like the portion that we actually we're weighing in on, as I understand it, is what we think is appropriate for treatment of the archaeological dig or what.
So, Mr. Chair, it's what's related to the report itself. If it's anything related to exterior improvements, that is not subject to the HLC. It's subject to the ABR's review. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to kind of make sure that we're on board with what we're actually doing here. Okay. So, any other questions? Don't start that again.
No, is there a Midden under here somewhere?
Yeah, a Midden.
Yeah.
All right, no Midden word.
We didn't find a Midden in the APE.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to
Good.
make a motion to accept the report as submitted.
Second.
All right. I got a second by Vena. Motion by House. Under discussion. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, motion carries. All right.
We're here for the next one, too.
They're not
We
leaving.
can't go too far.
All right. So now we're on to item 7. That was an archaeology report that only took 7 minutes. We're on to item 7, historic structures report for intersection of Olive Mill Road and Coast Village Road. Requesting acceptance of historic structures report. Report concluded that the proposed undertaking will have no effect on the 2 historic properties present within the indirect area of potential effects, the Montecito Inn, designated structure of merit, and the contributing building on Coast Village Road. The improvements proposed as part of the project will not alter the characteristics of the historic properties that qualify them for inclusion in or eligibility for the National Register of Historic Places. All right. So if you can give me a summary of that.
So as Chris previously stated, we did the set of Caltrans reports and also prepared a memo supplemental to meet the requirements of the city's MEA guidelines. So within the city limits, there are 6 properties. Within the entire APE of the project, there's actually 12 properties, but your memo that you should have received will discuss 6 of them. And so Rincon recorded and evaluated a total of 9 properties and performed or completed DPR updates for the Montecito Inn and a segment of the former Montecito Parkway. The Montecito Inn has a determination of National Register eligibility with SHPO concurrence and is a city-designated structure of merit. And then a segment of the Montecito Parkway that falls within the APE has a determination of ineligibility with SHPO concurrence, and Rincon concurs with those previous findings. There are additional properties, like I stated, one of them being the building at 1286 and 1292 Coast Village Road. And Rincon finds that the main 2-story building on the property is eligible for the National Register and the California Register at the local level of significance, as well as eligible for designation as a City of Santa Barbara landmark or structure of merit. And the remaining properties are recommended ineligible, including the Coast Village Road wooden sign that's within the center median, the freeway overcrossing, and another commercial building on Coast Village Road.
And the Biltmore sign, was that?
The Biltmore sign actually falls on county land.
And the black awning crab shack thing. Sorry. Too early. Sorry, too soon. Okay. All right. So do you have anything else? Does that conclude your report?
Well, we also determined that the indirect impacts based on the proposed project elements would be classified as less than significant or class 3 impacts.
Okay. Great. Thank you. All right. So I'll open public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Back to the commission for questions.
No questions?
Questions? No.
No middens.
What's that? No middens.
Midden,
okay.
Where's the midden?
Okay. All right. So in that case, any comments? Comments? Besides, it's a big, thick report that we can agree with.
Well, Mr. Chair, I agree with the findings of the report, so I'll make a motion to accept it as submitted.
Okay. Second. All right. Motion by House, second by Drury. Under discussion? All right.
Mr. Chair, the only thing that's under discussion is I'm trying to envision the roundabout.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
It's round.
Yeah.
It's round.
It's
square,
I have
actually.
a picture if you want it.
Oh, do you?
Oh, sure.
It's going to be quite a
Ooh, there you go. You can, here.
Oh, there's the tentacles.
And is there a dashed line of the
Those
existing?
are not
Here is
healing
the
tentacles.
Montecito Inn.
Those are driving tentacles.
Healing tentacles.
This is the highway on-ramp, highway off-ramp, going towards Jameson Lane, and then up Olive Mill
Yeah,
towards Coast Village Road.
I fit it in there.
What's that one that goes underneath? It looks like it's going underneath.
And which part of the
This
picture?
one? Oh, here? This goes towards
no.
Montecito.
It goes to a Midden.
This looks like it's going underneath. Is that going underneath or is this merging?
Jameson.
It's
That's
North
Jameson.
Jameson, so it's the
Coming and going.
westbound and then eastbound
Yeah, I see, okay.
with the splitter island.
Okay.
Wonderful.
All right, that's a sneak peek.
When's it going to be done?
Not soon enough.
Oh, that was too tough a question.
Okay.
It's not funded.
Well,
yet.
All right, so-
One question, what about the Coast Village Road sign?
That actually is outside of the city limits.
That one actually is in the city.
Oh, I'm sorry, the coastal road sign. Yes, that we found ineligible. If you turn to your memo on page 26, we have a analysis of it there. And if you'd like, I can walk you through it.
Sure.
So it is a wooden sign with hand-carved lettering. It is, however, not considered a significant example of a wooden sign because it is one of over 200 wooden signs within the community of Montecito, and it has been significantly altered. It has been damaged over various decades by vehicle collisions, the debris flow that happened 2 years ago. And so in speaking with the Coast Village Association and a woodworker who actually maintained the wooden sign for several years, it was determined that it is largely unoriginal. It has bondo and a lot of termite repair. And so we just determined that it was not a significant example of a sign.
You're going to remove it.
No, we're actually going to relocate it to the new island. Same general
You're going
footprint.
to relocate it to?
Yep. So we're going to try to protect it.
So where will that relocation be?
So the
essentially
proposed
the same.
island is going to shift and reduce in size, but it will be accommodated in the new island.
Yeah, so the context will be very
Yep.
similar.
So it'll be relocated, but so you're just going to restore it and relocate it?
Correct.
All right.
I can remember when it was down at the other end of the parking lot before it was installed. It was down there waiting to be installed.
Oh.
1960-something.
Ooh, that makes it over 50 years old.
Yeah.
We actually found the record drawings.
Requiring its evaluation.
You over 50 years old, too.
Yeah,
All right.
that's
Do
for
we,
sure.
what's that? We haven't actually voted yet.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Call the question.
So, all right. So, any other discussion? Other questions? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, motion carries. All right. And this is not appealable.
Will we be reviewing the landscaping on that?
It'll be ABR.
APR, okay.
They're not as good. All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Oops. Sorry, I lost my agenda here in the pile of stuff.
That's it.
Where are these people?
You're on to items, what,
Maybe
7?
out in the wings.
Still more, damn.
Is it raining?
No.
Two more.
Okay. I lost the
I
agenda.
see you here. But next week, inch and a half, 2 inches.
Next week, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
There are too many forms here.
Thank you.
We're pedestrian.
Sorry, does anyone have their agenda? I lost it in this pile here somewhere.
Here you go.
Too many reports.
Giant report. Okay.
fine.
Oh, thanks. Oh, I got it. Okay. All right, so we are on to item 8. Project design approval and final approval. So this is, project was last reviewed on July 24th, 2019. This is for East Figueroa Boulevard. All right, so, and then do I have minutes from that?
So, Mr. Chair, I have the minutes, if you don't have them in front of you.
Okay, yeah, why don't I do that? I've got too many piles going here. Okay. All right, so, welcome. All right, so do we have any staff comments?
Not really, Mr. Chair. The project did go through our application completeness review process and was deemed complete. It's also satisfied its stormwater requirements at this point in time, so it is eligible for both project design approval and final approval today at the Commission's discretion.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Right. Yes, Commissioner Mahan?
I didn't review this before when it came before I was gone, and I haven't watched it on television, and I'm going to be leaving early anyway, so I think I'll leave right now.
Okay.
We still have a quorum with 5 members.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good.
Mr. Chair?
All right, Commissioner House?
I have a question. This is before us for project design approval and final approval. But I don't recall at the last meeting, I mean, considering reading over the things we were requesting, I don't remember saying that this could return for PDA. So,
So, Mr. Chair, the applicant, any applicant, can request project design approval at their discretion.
Okay.
So they went through their first concept review and felt it was appropriate to request, or felt that they were prepared to make that request.
Okay, so
that's
it doesn't
why,
reflect that we thought it was ready for
no,
PDA
it is.
at that
It is
time.
the
Okay.
applicant requesting it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, welcome. Can you please state your name for the record?
Taylor Berryman, project manager at the City of Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Laura Yanez, supervising civil engineer with the City of Santa Barbara.
Okay. All right, so why don't you take us through?
So this is the Wharf Pedestrian and Cyclist Safety Improvement Project that was identified due to some conflict points between pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicular traffic at the Stearns Wharf entrance on Cabrillo Boulevard, State Street, and the wharf, which is located right here. The project we felt was ready to come back for project design approval and final approval because of the minor comments that were received back in July, so I can start going through the project. So this sheet is a stormwater management plan overview that shows where the new paths will be located with the light gray hatching. So light gray shows concrete, the darker gray shows pervious concrete, and this hatching shows decomposed granite. The cross hatching shows concrete removal. So the idea of the project is to eliminate some of the pedestrian paths that lead to this kind of sprawling area where pedestrians have gotten in known conflicts with fast-moving cyclists, runners, joggers, people using the multi-use path, and cause congestion here combined with some of the vehicle traffic here. So that's kind of the driving force of the project. The project makes no alterations really to any of the flow lines or concrete in this area. It adds a second pedestrian path, so where pedestrians and multi-use path users are using the same path now, there will be a wider area where pedestrians can cross here. These two crosswalk access ramps have been backed up just a little bit towards the symmetric light standards here, which will remain in place. And then some striping, just white striping here and green conflict hatching, conflict bars there. And some additional hatching will kind of clear up the area for people to know where they should be crossing when this site gets crowded.
Oh, and actually what I should have done was I should have started with the motion and the verbiage, sorry. Okay, so the motion was continue indefinitely with the following comments. One was the commission accepts and appreciates the need for proposed improvements. 2, the commission is not supportive of the planters as proposed as they have a temporary look to them. Other suggestions are to use an iron railing in lieu of the planters of the same design as currently exists as part of the bridge, or to remove concrete paving and replace it with the planting in that area. 3, study using an alternative paving visual element at the pedestrian walk entrance towards Stearns Wharf to alert pedestrians that they are crossing a bike path. And the action was by Drury, seconded by Uli. It was 6-0-0. Grumby, Mahan, and Vena were absent. The motion carried. And I did watch the tape, so. All right. All right.
So these ones were just added, and I think they're helpful to show some visualization of the project site too. The idea being here is where a pedestrian would be looking if they're going to be heading east on Cabrillo. And so right now you kind of see two options. It's a little tough to get oriented upside down, but yeah. You got to go, so a pedestrian could either go this way and start going down the path, which is pretty enticing right now, or they could come straight down this way and walk towards Cabrillo. The idea being this is a decision point for the pedestrians. If we're able to show a path that cuts straight through, and maybe this is better. Yeah. So you're standing here, and this is your decision point. If you're able to show a path in the distance that has connectivity to the Cabrillo Boulevard, and you kind of make this one out of that person's way, they'll be more enticed to walk along the path where they're much less in conflict with fast-moving cyclists. So that's really all those photos illustrate. Those were from the first presentation back in July. So the project is accepted by Stormwater as Tier 2 because we stayed under a 500 square foot threshold. Yeah. This addresses some of the Commission's concerns with the planter boxes that we brought to you guys back in July. We've completely gotten rid of the planter boxes. We're using the matching railing that's currently here on site on both sides. It'll be painted Malaga green, and it'll extend from the end of the bridge rails until this concrete wedge. So this is turf in this area, turf in this area. So this is new Malaga green ornamental railing on both sides.
To match existing.
And we did consider the extension of these planters into this area, but after consultation with Parks, who maintains this area, doing something like that puts these planter boxes in awkward wedges that are difficult to maintain in water. So ultimately, the ornamental railing matched what was out there and will be the most effective. So here shows some concrete removal at Skaters Point, between the multi-use path and Skaters Point. All this will be is removal of concrete in these areas and concentrating the pedestrian crossing to one area of the multi-use path. This is existing planting. The sign that's shown here is symmetrically reflected over at the wharf as well. And this is just simple signing that shows a user coming this way towards the wharf where the pedestrians and cyclists should be using. So here's the landscape plan showing what plants are going to be going where the concrete removal is. The idea being that if we get some plants in here, nothing large, everything's matching what's on site, and we've talked to Parks about what they'd prefer to see. You can keep the pedestrians using the designated pathways and crossing at these concentrated areas while ensuring the visual integrity of the area.
So the proposed plantings match existing.
Yeah. And that ends my presentation.
Okay. All right. In that case, we'll open public comment. Anyone member of the public wanting to speak can speak. There's no one, so we'll close it.
I think there's somebody hiding.
Yeah, that was their chance to jump up.
Yeah.
All right, so back to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Dury.
This may be beyond the purview, but one of the real stoppers of this roundabout is that little Metro bus. That's where it stops. So people that are trying to get onto the wharf, because there's 2 lanes, right? People that are trying to get onto the wharf have to wait for that bus, and if it's a busy summer day, I've seen people back up almost the way across the Cabrillo Boulevard on State Street. Is there, and I don't know if there's an opportunity, but wouldn't it be nice, is this a question, are we in questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
we are.
Wouldn't it be nice if that little metro bus stopped on Cabrillo Boulevard just west?
Talking about this area here?
I'm talking about, yeah.
Okay.
You know, you're in an access lane to get onto Stearns Wharf. If you cross it and that bus gets in front of it, and you have to wait. Because if you go around it, you can't see the bicyclists coming from the west. I always thought it was it was too bad that it was there. I mean, I understand the need for it, but I think it could be, that may be transportation to deal with, you know, but it's something to certainly think about. That's all I have in terms of questions.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I was just, we went over this last time, and I don't remember exactly what the proposal was last time, but in terms of what you're saying about having a path visually available that they can see, and you said something about this, you're doing something that makes it less enticing to go this way, and what is that exactly?
So for one, I'm going to go to the next sheet. There will be this sign posted right here.
And don't you think that this should have a little person flying struck by a bicycle? Yeah.
Is one answer. The other is that this curb line shows where the existing path is. So this contradiction in where the path is proposed and where it currently is, we believe will make that decision easier for pedestrians to go this way in combination with the sign.
Okay. All right.
All right.
It'll work or it won't work. You'll
I
find out.
I have a question. Is there a reason on page 4 here? Is there a reason there is this post is so close to this one, and this one doesn't exist?
The hatching isn't shown to scale.
Okay. So this is just a hatching. So you're going to start at this post, you're going to run a rail, you're going to end on a post. It's going to be
correct.
Okay.
You don't do much CAD drafting yourself.
I don't. I know, but
yeah,
but it
you
still
can't
needs.
get
It
those
does
posts
need
to be
to
where they need to be. They just.
Yeah. All right.
I have a question regarding that same issue, where you're adding that little continuation of planting.
This one right here?
Yes. And the rail is standing away from that edge of that planting. And I kind of wonder if people aren't going to simply walk through there.
That's a good question, and I'll even extend the question to will people walk here? So the idea being on this side, we have included a planter to discourage that. And on this side, the railing will extend to the edge, but we're limited on both the east and west side by where the Sunday Art Walk corrals are. So we don't want to be railing them off from their potential customers. So
have you thought about putting some kind of
spiky plant?
Well, a spiky plant or a boulder or something at the end of that rail in the planter so that people aren't going to. Yeah.
Poison oak.
Well,
yes.
I mean,
So
a boulder there might, that's large enough that would prevent people from pushing a stroller through and whatever might be.
Yeah, a boulder I would think would be a maintenance issue for parks, especially on this side because they use a sit lawnmower to mow the lawn. On this side, what we'll be doing is is choosing like low shrubs potentially. One thing that was brought up by the irrigation technician is to add a small palm tree.
A small
palm tree.
Palm tree. Well, that might work.
Rose bush.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I believe the palm tree would probably be better. I think that if you put boulders and so forth, they're kind of attractive for kids, and they'll stomp right through there, get up there, sit on them, whatever. And they do that normally. Yep. So all in all, without having something to attract the kids and so forth or anyone like that, perhaps the palm tree might be better, and or a clump of palm trees that make a statement.
Okay.
On both ends of that railing.
In other words, a variety of palm that has clumping tendencies so that you have a statement, in effect, encouraging.
Are those palms there now?
Well, yes.
The existing trees shown on the plans are Mexican fan palms.
All right,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair?
Guerra, you were
Yeah,
going to say?
on that same page with the, page.
4.
Is it 4? Yeah, 4 of 6, yeah. So the metal used for the wrought iron fence will be solid stock, square stock?
It's the same spec as what was in the Cabrillo Bridge rail.
That's solid, I think. It's not tube. Okay. You sure?
The Cabrillo Bridge rail.
I think
Is that
I think
next to here?
we have to have solid stock. Is that right, Commissioner House?
Well, generally, that's our request, and I
Yeah.
would think on a bridge rail where there are vehicles that could hit it and bend it out of shape, they prefer that anyway.
Is there a rail? Is is there a picture of where the railing is that you're matching?
Right
there. Okay.
And right
Oh, sorry, let's put this on.
Maybe I would say as a comment, just call that out.
In the background there.
It's solid stock.
Yeah.
It should be.
Okay.
And that's it.
Any other comments?
Yes, I do have a
Okay.
comment. I'm down there every day, and I think it's going to be a big improvement to get people out of the line of traffic of people being lost trying to get up State Street in the other lane, right? And people on the corner, there's a light there, right? Pedestrian light. It's going to make people that aren't interested in going up State Street a lot easier access to go across the bridge into the skate park and so on. I've been in favor of this since the moment I saw it. I think it's an improvement. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
There's Mr. Drury.
Yeah.
This artist brush going to paint. There we go.
And you're very well.
That's what's that? I said that's you walking with your artist brush going to paint.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Any other comments?
I have a
Yes,
comment.
Commissioner Vian?
I'd like to reinforce the hopeful relocation of the little bus. And it does block an awful lot. I don't know what you can do about it, but it's certainly a visual and physical intrusion on this projected plan that you're proposing.
So do you want to respond to that?
We can let transportation know. I think they're aware of the queuing, and it is probably what helps the trolley get some customers is the fact that it gets people from upper state down to the waterfront.
Perhaps they can stop elsewhere or something
Yeah,
like
we can
that, but
let them know and see if
at
they've
least
studied that.
study
Yeah.
it.
So, okay, that sounds good.
I think it'd have a more successful project.
Is that an MTD vehicle, or is it somebody else that runs it?
At one point, I believe it was MTD. I believe it now it's
Private.
it's run by downtown parking,
No?
or it's a shared interest.
Okay, so I think to summarize so far the comments, okay, so regarding comment number 1, the Commission accepts and appreciates the need for proposed improvement. We still do. Comment 2, the not supportive of the planters, or as the blocking, and you took those out and you turned it into a rail, right? And then we were supportive of the rail with the comment that it matches the existing and it is solid stock. Solid stock and matches the existing. And then on item 3, study use of an alternative paving. And I think was everyone in support of the paving as proposed in this version? Okay. Supportive of the paving. So the only other things that I heard were that on page 4, the new planter area at the edge of the iron railing to plant on both ends, was it? Yeah, on
Yeah,
both
the
ends.
west ends.
East and west ends, or, yeah. East, we'll call it east and west.
May
East
I respond on the
on this one? Yeah,
west
sure.
end? So the west end, we were going to have another crescent-shaped planter proposed, and after talking to Parks, this stall is used on the Sunday arts lecture by an ADA patron. So they need this kind of pavement that backs into their stall, so we
Gotcha.
couldn't add plants on that one.
Okay. So is everyone good with just doing the palm on the one side?
On the east?
On this side, because this is
On
an
the west
ADA
end. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be
stall
fine.
as well. Okay, so just on the west side. With on the west side,
I can't, I
small
don't know what
palm.
that designation is.
Do you want to call out what type, Commissioner Vena?
They've got natal palms. Is that
Natal.
what's in?
What is this plant? What is the plant that you're scheduled for this?
What are these
bump out?
plants?
Is that just
It's on
lawn?
the last sheet, the L1 sheet.
Yeah, I can't tell.
I know, but I can't tell what
It's a mixture of.
foxtail,
the-
chalk sticks.
The plants aren't prescribed per there's no plant plan that shows exactly where each plant's going to go.
But
It's
these,
the schedule.
but currently these are being proposed as foxtail agave.
The lighter hatching is existing Mexican fan palms.
Oh.
This is just the proposed new planting
Oh,
area.
gotcha.
But we don't know what's going there.
Gotcha.
The schedule breaks it down per area, but not each dot doesn't line up to a plant.
You're saying this is a hatch for the plant. You're saying the agave are going here. Foxtail agaves are going here. And
In the
then,
number breakdown on the table on L1.
yeah, okay. So foxtail agaves.
This
So
is
what we're
area B.
saying with a, we haven't specified which type of palm. Is there a photo to?
A clumping variety might be Senegal date palm. That would give it some scale and give it multiple
Okay. Senegal date palm.
trunking.
Okay. So Senegal date palm on the west.
Of a substantial size. So instead of a little one, you know.
You suggest a box size?
Yeah.
Yes, at least a 24, 36-inch box.
Really?
With a height multiple trunks, 3 to 4 multiple trunks, and height round trunk might be 6 to 8 feet high.
Okay. With those specifications. And then the last one, item was the trolley stop. If you can review with transportation and see if there's a solution that can be achieved for
So that's
to not
what's
have
going
that
there.
as big a queuing.
Yeah,
The configuration.
yeah.
All right.
But it doesn't say which
So
Okay.
I think that's where we are with it.
And
So,
then, Mr. Chair, if the commission is going to be granting project design approval and final approval today, I'm going to ask that you go through the project compatibility criteria. It's on the wall as well as the light yellow sheet. And also the historic resource findings that are on the orange sheet, as this property is within the California State East Cabrillo Boulevard Parkway Historic District, and it's on the potential historic resources list. So just include that in your motion.
okay. So the only one it seems like it can't be defined with an answer in the motion is the trolley stop, right? Because if that's
So,
And that's just
Mr.
a
Chair,
suggestion.
it's not under the HLC's purview to request that change. I would just add it as a comment at the end, and we can include it in the minutes as a comment that the commission would like that information relayed to transportation. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right, so does anyone want to try a motion? Is anyone feeling like that with, so the comment would be, or if we were to give project design approval and final approval, or we could give project design approval and then have them up with these updates come back. But aside from the solid stock to the wrought iron railing, but the way they have it proposed looks good, and the Senegal date palm in this patch, so there's not really far for it to go. That seemed like the only additional changes to their.
Mr. Chair,
plan.
that comment specifically about the Senegal date bomb was pretty objective. I think it's something we
Specific?
could look at. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Where it doesn't need to.
What's that?
Where it doesn't need to come back.
Gotcha. So where it's
Is there a benefit to marking on these plans where it should go so that you can confirm? Yeah, we could do that.
All right.
Here's a red pen.
Okay. Try not to impede. You might help me on this. Try
You
not
want a
to.
red pen, Julio?
That's
There you go.
Bleed all over.
Yeah.
Rubricate.
Areas of impedance in any direction. In other words.
I didn't fully understand the question.
Oh, it's not a question.
In other words,
He's telling you.
Oh, where is the area of impedance greatest?
Yes.
I would say here.
Okay. So
Edge, yeah.
by impedance, I mean not necessarily physical, but visual. In other words.
It would still point to the same spot.
Same
yeah.
spot?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
There we go. Done. I'll circle it just for clarity. I'll get onto the camera there. All right, there it is. So it is drawn.
Barring utilities.
I get it.
Existing utilities.
I think it's just irrigation, but that'll be affected by the new planting anyways.
Okay. So with that, with those few comments, is anyone ready to make a motion for project design
Like
approval and
Commissioner
final?
Lenbick was grabbing.
Well, I
the,
was thinking about it, but
it's daunting.
I'd make a motion for design and final approval with the conditions as listed. And the gold one?
Yeah, so the historic resource findings and the project compatibility criteria, which is on the yellow sheet. So the gold and the yellow sheet. Historic resource findings on the gold.
So the making the historic resource findings that the project will not cause a substantial adverse change in the significance of an historic resource, that the commission finds the project is compatible with the city charter and municipal code and in compliance with the design guidelines for the El Pueblo Viejo district guidelines. It is compatible with the architectural character of the beach area and the existing development. Mass scale and bulk is not relevant to this approval. It is sensitive to the landmark status of the beach area and Stearns Wharf. Public views aren't an issue, and open space and landscaping is not an issue.
All right.
Bravo.
Very good. Second. All right, that was easy. Commissioner Drury for a second. Under discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Congratulations.
I have a
This
question.
is appealable in 10 days to City Council.
Is that new striping and new striping there?
Correct. There's existing striping as
Yeah,
you can see
so
underlaying.
you're trying to give it
Give them direction.
give it direction. Feel this direction are warned here and that direction
Aye.
are there.
All right, we are on to item 9.
More?
Staff presentation, miscellaneous action item. This is a staff presentation of the 2020 census.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you for continuing to serve on the board.
All right. We even review censuses here at the HLC.
What's going on here?
Red, white, brown, pink, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
Aren't you going to come sit before us?
The sound's on. Are you going to come here? Do you want me to sit facing you?
Might be a little easier. I don't know how long this is.
It's a really quick presentation. So let me just get this set up really quick. All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jessica Metzger, and I am the liaison for the city
on the 2020 Census Committee for the County of Santa Barbara. And I'm here today just to give you a quick update on the census, kind of remind you what we do every 10 years, and then what has changed this year from previous years. So just to give you a history of the census, it is actually written into our Constitution that every 10 years we should have a count of everyone in the country. And so that's Section 2 of the Constitution, which is really right at the front on the 6th sentence. The first census took place in 1790, and our census is kicking up to go into full gear this year. And Census Day officially will be April 1st. The census affects many different parts of our government, including the voices that we have as states at the federal level, how much funding our community receives, and how we plan for the future. Conducting the census is the largest peacetime operation undertaken by the government. And just to give you a scale of that, here in the county of Santa Barbara, we've hired over 4,000 people to work on the census. So that's a large amount of employees. And then I have a couple videos that, although I didn't get to test, I think will play. So I'm going to show you those.
Census.gov. It's the 2020 census. Every 10 years, the census records everyone living in this country. It's written in the Constitution and comes in a questionnaire that counts everyone who lives at your address on April 1st. The data can be used to inform funding for services like fire stations, schools, clinics, and representation that affect your community. Shape your future. Start here. Visit 2020census.gov.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Magic.
And so the public service announcements that I'll show you throughout this presentation should be airing on our local programs as well as on all of the governmental agency TV programs like CTV that we have here in the city. So once again, just a reminder, it creates jobs, it helps our community plan for the future, it supports public safety and emergency preparedness, and draws new congressional lines, state legislative districts, local council districts, school districts, and voter precincts. So how are you going to participate in the census? This is what has changed this year from previous years. We are requesting that people first fill out the census online. So you will receive a letter anywhere between March 12th to the end of the month that will have a unique website address for you to go onto the census webpage and fill out your census form. So in previous years, it was just by a paper form. You also can do it over the phone if you're not comfortable doing it online. And then I'll get into when the paper form comes into play in a little bit later. It can also be done by visiting a variety of different places that are called assistance centers or kiosks. We in the city are going to have 2 kiosk locations, one at the East Side Library and one at the Central Library. And those will be open March 12th through the end of June, and open longer if we need that. And then if the household does not fill out the questionnaire during what we're calling the self-response period, when we send you the letter asking you to fill it out, then you will be contacted by the Census Bureau and those enumerators that are coming out on the street. So then these are the key dates of the census.
How do I take the 2020 census? In March 2020, you'll receive an invite to a simple questionnaire. You can complete it online, call by phone, or send it by mail. If you don't respond, a census taker will follow up and assist you. Shape your future. Start here. Visit 2020census.gov.
Quick and easy salmon patties.
That's what I'm having for dinner tonight. No. And so what will happen is you'll first get that letter asking you to do it online, and then you'll get another reminder letter if they haven't received anything from your residents. And those residences are generated by the city. So anytime we get a permit, we actually build a database that we give to the census to show a new household or a accessory dwelling unit or something like that. Then you'll get a third reminder with a paper questionnaire, and then if you still haven't responded, those on-the-ground folks will be coming and knocking on your door. So important things to know about the census. This census will not have a citizenship status question on it. That was determined at the courts level, at the federal level. It's really clear that your personal information that you give to the census cannot be shared with any other federal department or jurisdiction, and it's protected and kept confidential. The Census Bureau and any of the people on the ground will never ask you for payment or your Social Security number or any banking numbers or PIN numbers. And it's important to have everyone who hears this presentation be an ambassador for a census. So if you're at dinner with someone and they said that they had this phone call from a census worker, we've had a lot of scams already in the county. And if you hear of anything like that, please report it to me. Pilar can get you my information because we're really tracking those sorts of things and trying to nip them in the bud early on. And also, the census counts everyone where they live and sleep most of the time, even if the living arrangement is temporary. So if you have a friend that is relocating to Santa Barbara and sleeping on your couch for the next couple months while they look for a place to live, they're counted in your residence. So you and them will be counted. It's a really short form. It's only 7 questions, so it shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes to fill out. And every person counts, including babies and children and college students. And we count them as to where they are living and sleeping at that point in time in April 1st.
My grandma always says everyone counts, and everyone who lives with us is special. Like my aunt, who took me on my first bus ride to the library, or my older cousin, who walked me to my first day of school, even my mom's friend and her baby who live with us.
The census informs funding for schools, roads, healthcare, and more. So count everyone in your home, including all children on the 2020 census. It's your chance to help them for the next 10 years. You can respond online, by phone, or by mail. Shape your future. Start here. Learn more at 2020census.gov.
And so the reason that we have such a large outreach process this year on the census is because in the last census, we had a serious lack of counting of children, especially children under 5 years of age, and also people of Hispanic or Latino origin. And the important thing to remember when we talk about all those funding sources that we get is that every person that isn't counted in the census is a deduction of $2,000 per year from federal funding. So that equals $20,000 till the next census that we lose per person. So those are school lunches for children. Those are funds for parks. They're funds for fire trucks and other services like that. Roads, it just goes on and on. The money that we get from the feds is all based on the people living in the states. So that's why it's so important for us to do this. So I think that concludes my presentation. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Can I help out by being counted 5 times or something?
You can count on us.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any signage for us to review, or is there?
There's no
This
signage.
does not El Pueblo Viejo.
Have the aesthetics of this been considered?
So the only question I had was, why is this presentation being done to all the design? Okay.
Yeah, it's being done.
I just want to make sure that everyone had to deal with
I
it.
don't recall having ever been counted before. I mean, I don't remember 10 years or 20 years ago getting something in the mail.
Commissioner House, you've
I'm
created a deficit in
I'm
this
off
county.
the grid.
So you're the reason we don't have a hospital.
No, it's not that I didn't
fire.
fill it out. I mean, I don't recall ever getting anything before, but 10 years is a while ago, so.
That's why you have a wife.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right, we're done. All right.
Thank you all. Have
Thank
a good
you.
afternoon.
All right.
Thank you, Jessica.
Are you saying that there never
All
will
right.
be a phone call
We're official.
from the census?
An enumerator will come by.
Okay, that was a real question.
Two of them and they're very.
All right, real question.
Here, let me just clear that up really quick. So no one will call you on the census. You can call them, and they can come knock on your door.
That's calling is a scam.
Yes.
For the $5,000 I transferred to the Nigerian prince
Yeah.
for the census. All right. All right, thank you. So, we are adjourned. All right.